What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Cinephile Diaries. I think I'm going to mention this in the main show, which this is going to come out after the main show, but I'm recording this before the main show. But I'm revamping the podcast a little bit. I'm not going to say this is a bonus episode of the Cinephile Diaries. This is just a bonus episode of Real Reflections, which is the name of the main channel. Um, but this is a bonus episode. In this episode, we're going to do a deep dive on a show that has become very important to me over the last couple of weeks. And I did just say we because I have a friend here. His name is Izzy, and
Hello.
he's the guy who got me into this damn thing. Thanks for ruining my life.
You're welcome.
But yeah, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Who are you? Who are you?
My name is Izzy. I am one of Caleb's coworkers. I gave him the recommendation for Fight Club. I gave him the recommendation for Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's a show that I hold very dear to my heart, but I don't think I've ever met anyone that's actually watched it. So I wanted someone to talk to about it with,
That's
and
yeah.
Caleb fell in love with it, and I'm very happy about that.
I fell in love is a good word because I like it's the perfect show for me. It's like I don't know. I feel like have I talked I feel like I've talked about, you know, the fact that I love shows about religion. I love drama, mental health and shit. I love everything. I love a lot of those types of shows, and this is combining all of that. I love animated shows. I love shows that have monsters of the week. The show combines literally all of those things into that. But yeah, so we're gonna do a deep dive on the entirety of Evangelion because I've seen the show, I've seen End of Eva, and now I've seen all four rebuilds. So yeah, let's jump into it. Okay, so I guess we're gonna just start this conversation with the originals, with the thing that started it all, the original Neon Genesis Evangelion anime, the original 26 episodes. Um, I have talked for 30 freaking minutes about this show, so I would love for you to, take it off and tell us how you feel about the original show, at least.
Okay, so it's good. That's it.
Great, we're good. Everybody go home, guys.
Yeah. Now, Neon Genesis Evangelion is a really good show. 26 episodes long. I watched that my sophomore year. Yeah, my sophomore year of high school. And like
Wow.
my sophomore year of high school was not a great time for me. It was very terrible. I didn't really like who I was then. And watching Evangelion is kind of like, I don't want to sound cheesy and say like life changing and stuff, but it definitely makes you like reevaluate who you are as a person.
That's
Um,
completely fair, I think.
yeah. So the show starts off with our main protagonist Shinji, and he is going to see his father Gendo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Shinji is a really interesting character because there's so many layers to him,
Hmm.
be it in the show itself and the creator of the show. Hideaki Anno is the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and a lot of animes are based off mangas that came before. Like
Hmm.
Evangelion was a just pure kind of, I don't know what it's called, but there was no, it was based off nothing. It was just based off of like Anno's
It
story
was
that he
just,
wanted to
yeah.
tell. And
There.
Hideaki Anno, his self insert in the story is just Shinji. Shinji is him. It's basically a story of how he, kind of like how he conveys his emotions.
Hmm.
The creator of the show was in a very deep depression when he made it throughout the entirety of making the show, and
Hmm.
it's very apparent with the main
Right.
character. Shinji is
Yeah.
abandoned at a young age by his father Gendo, who is the worst person in
Just
any
awful.
fictional time. Any timeline, Gendo is just an awful person.
Yeah,
He's
yeah. Like
terrible.
we'll talk about it later, but Gendo is so irredeemable over and over again. Yeah.
He's terrible. Worst father ever. Um, but yeah, so he comes to this place, which the setting is so cool. It takes place in a city called Tokyo 3, which implies that Tokyo has been destroyed
Tokyo's,
multiple times.
yes, yeah.
And in this unit, in this, I guess, this world, it takes place 15 years after the second impact. And there's these things that are referred to as impacts, which is basically like kind of destroying the planet. There
Hmm.
was the first impact, which ironically created everything at the beginning of time. And then when that happened, there was two things that were made. There was Lilith and Adam, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so every universe has one Lilith and one Adam. And if they like get too close to each other, it creates an impact that could destroy everything. And basically there's this organization called Nerve, and they are the ones who make all the Evangelion units, which is
Hmm.
the title of the show. And Evangelion is a giant robot that is used to fight these things called angels. Angels are sent to try to get into contact with Lilith and bring about the end of the world. But it's a lot deeper than that. But like surface level explanation,
Yeah, that's a very
that's
good
what it
like
is.
opening to like what the show is. Because you kind of you meet Shinji literally just in the city for the first time. In fact, I think you actually meet Masato first. Masato's in the car driving to find him, and she's
Yep.
like, "How did I lose him?" or whatever. Um, and then you meet Shinji. He's like at the phone, and I love that. I love it. I love that it just throws you straight in because it
Yeah.
starts and everyone's evacuating. The phones are down because there's an angel on the way, and and you start with Masato racing to find Shinji, and the entire first episode is just that race to get Shinji to an Eva, um, while also he's having to like reckon with the fact that um, he's about
He's
to
gonna
meet
see
his
his father.
father for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah, it's because his father abandoned him. Terrible
Hmm.
father.
Terrible
Um,
dad, terrible.
the whole build of the episode is getting Shinji into Evangelion Unit One, which there's multiple units. Um, but like he doesn't really want to do it, and like I get it, who wants to pilot a giant robot? And he's 14, by the way, so he's a child.
Right.
He is a literal child, and he really doesn't want to pilot the Evangelion unit. And the only reason why he does is he sees another pilot whose name is Ray, and she's been injured from trying to fight the Angel, and she pilots Evangelion Unit Zero, right?
Yes, although she wasn't injured fighting an angel.
She wasn't finished right. That's right. That's right. But
Yeah.
she's injured nonetheless, and him seeing her injured kind of like spikes this, I guess, fight or flight response. But he
Hmm.
chooses to fight, and he gets in the Evangelion unit, and then it's just one of the coolest sequences ever, because the place where the Evangelion units is held is deep, deep underground, like
Hmm.
way below the city of Tokyo. So they have these like rail system that shoots this giant, maybe like what I want to say they're 80 meters tall. However
Yeah.
tall that is in real, yeah, I don't. I need to look it
In
up.
real numbers.
Yeah, in real numbers, I don't know how tall that
I'm
is,
an
but it sounds
American.
really tall. I'm an American. I don't know what that means. Um, and it shoots him up into the city. And Shinji is piloting Evangelion Unit One for the first time. He's piloting
Hmm.
a giant robot,
Hmm.
like a Megazord from Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know what he's doing, obviously.
He
But he tries to fight the Angel, and the Angel just whoops
he
his
gets his ass
ass.
kicked. He gets his
He
ass
gets his
beat.
ass kicked. And then what one thing that's so interesting watching it and not knowing anything is that after he gets hit by it, the Evangelion unit starts bleeding like
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
blood. And that
It's like
really just like from the
what?
first episode, you're like, why is this robot bleeding blood?
Right.
Why is this robot bleeding? And but a weird kind of cut happens and Shinji defeats the angel.
Yeah, because like
It's
the
kind of
episode
long, let me tell you.
ends. Yeah, the episode
Um,
ends and he wait. I think the next episode starts in the hospital with
Yeah, he
him
wakes up in the
waking
hospital.
up.
They're like, "You beat the angel," but like they don't show how he beat the
They
angel
don't.
or anything
Yeah.
like that. And they don't show that until I think like what is it?
I think
Episode
I think it's the end of episode 2. I think that's a
3?
flashback.
I don't think so. I thought they showed it later on after preface spoilers. Spoilers for like a what 20
20
30-year old show.
Yeah.
I thought they didn't show how he beat the angel until after Unit One goes berserk for the first time. I
No,
could be wrong. I think
I
it was a bit before that though.
I think they show it in I don't know. It's been a couple weeks,
Oh
and I have all of the rebuilds in my mind now, and like,
yeah, I
but
got
I
more of the rebuilds in my mind than the actual show.
no, yeah, I'm pretty sure he defeats. I'm pretty sure they show it. I'm pretty sure they show it in episode
Yeah,
2, but like at
but
the
after all
end of
that
the
happened,
episode, they have him moving in with Masato and like getting
yeah,
you, and I no, yeah, definitely, because it's when he's lying in bed and he's like, this is another
you're
ceiling
right.
I
It
don't
is when he's lying in
recognize,
bed.
and then he has that flashback and he remembers the eyes, what he locked out. Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, after that, he moves in with Miss Masato, who is a very interesting character.
she's yeah,
Yeah, and it's hinted to that like one of the characters, Ritsuko, tells Misato like, "Oh, don't be hitting on this boy," you know. But like in your mind, you're like, Misato's a grown woman and Shinji's a
grow,
14-year-old, you know?
but like also you kind of can't help but not just because they're so that I don't know how to explain it. That it feels weird, but you kind of can't help but not root for it to some extent.
You know, you kind of want to root for Shinji in a way, you know, because like
Yeah.
it's
Especially when he like gets to school and everyone else is obsessed with Masato when
everyone's
he
like
gets to school.
fawning over her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the second episode is with Toji and I forget the glasses dude's name. I'm
Uh
sorry, he's like
no,
not
you're
on
good.
there at all.
Ida? Ida
Yeah, it's Ida.
yeah.
It's Ida, and that's whenever they try to sneak out of the bunkers to watch an angel fight, right?
Mhm.
And
That's
then
yeah, cuz episode 2 he
that's two or
fights.
three.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's 3. 3 is when he fight.
Yeah,
No, yeah, 3 is definitely when he fights the angel and they end up outside. And
yeah.
then
In this time, we also get a little bit more information on Ray, who's the pilot from the beginning of the show.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
And I really enjoy Shinji's and Ray's like dynamic, especially in the beginning of the show, because they almost have like a romantic type of like chemistry, which is
Mhm.
so cute. And then like later in the show, it
And
gets
then
completely spoiled.
you figure
It
out
gets
a thing
completely
and it's like,
spoiled.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a scene I really like from the beginning when Shinji is trying to talk to Ray about Gendo because no, yeah, because Ray values Gendo so much and Shinji just doesn't get it, you know. And you can see there's like jealousy from Shinji that like, oh, his dad cares more about Ray
Mhm.
than himself, you know. And then Ray asks Shinji a question like, what is it? It's like, do you trust Gendo? And he says no. And Ray slaps him, which is like a lot of character coming from Ray because she's very deadpan, very
Right.
monotone, does not show any facial expressions at all, which is makes a lot more sense later.
Yeah, I've literally seen that slap. I've seen the show. I've seen that episode of the show twice. That I've seen the same slap happens in the rebuilds, and it like I'm still not entirely sure what it means. Cause and this is I mean this is spoilers for the fact that the fact that Ray is a clone of his mom. The fact that
Mhm.
Ray is a clone of Shinji's mom. So like that slap could be um don't talk about your father that way. Like as a mom, like don't talk about my husband that way. It could be um as like a child. She almost feels like she's Gendo's kid. Don't talk about my dad that way. Or
The
almost as like
opposite of like, don't
yeah,
talk about my husband that way, you know?
yeah. It's such a complex like moment, and yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it stuck out to me on rewatch because I was like, I still don't know what this moment means.
And the next big angel fight is the only angel whose name I genuinely know is Ramil. Ramil is a it's a triangle. That's literally what he is. He's just a big triangle. And it is probably one of my favorite angels, just design wise. And he appears in both the show and the rebuilds. All the angels do. But
Yeah,
specifically, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. His design in the rebuilds is so
is
cool.
so cool.
Because it's like an ever molding shape. But what is it? It makes its way to the center of Tokyo 3 and it starts to drill down into the nerve headquarters and they can't get near it. So the way they do it is with a giant sniper
Sniper
rifle
rifle. Yeah,
that is powered by the entire city's like power panel. And like these Avas move, the Evangelion movements, the Evangelion units, they move like people. You know, they
yeah.
look very like human,
They
but
look
like when you
very
think about
fluid.
them when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like the sniper rifle is bigger than the Evangelion unit. So think like a skyscraper, but they just laid it on the ground. That's how big the sniper rifle is. And what is it? Shinji shoots Ramil, but it doesn't really work, and Ramil starts shooting back at him. But then Rei comes in to help him by like shielding the blast, so
Hmm.
Shinji can get a shot on it. But after that, it looks like Rei and her Evangelion unit have been like injured and stuff. And
Yeah,
Shinji, out of like worry, he gets out of his and he goes in there, checks on her, and she's sitting there and like she almost died and she's extremely monotone, you know? And
yeah,
one of my favorite scenes is like, what is it? Rei asks like, well, what should she do in this situation?
yeah.
And Shinji's like, you could smile,
You
you
could
know?
smile.
And she
Yeah.
smiles and shows like actual emotion for the first time.
I have like so many things to say about that one episode. Cause first of all, one of the things that really clicked on rewatch that I love about the show is the teamwork. Cause they keep asking, and I don't know why this didn't click, but like Shinji especially keeps asking, why do I pilot the Ava? He keeps asking people, why am I doing this? And Shinji's answer, at least for most of the show, is I do it because it makes me feel belong. Like it gives me praise. It makes me feel like I belong. Um, and like he's specifically looking for praise from one person, and he doesn't really get it. But
His dad.
his dad, and he never gets it. God, Giddo's such an asshole. um, but I lost my train of thought. Specifically, like the teamwork in the show, the fact that they have these insane plans, like in this episode, we're gonna use all of the power from the entirety of Japan to kill this one Ava. Uh, I love that the show actually does the work to make you to like show why Shinji feels like he belongs. Because it's easy to have like a group of people. I'm trying to think of examples, but there's a lot of examples of like people coming together to do a thing and like do teamwork. But because
Indie
I'm re
Power Rangers show.
yeah,
Like
yeah, exactly. Or like I'm watching Star Trek Picard right now. I'll talk about it on the main show. Um, but I'm watching Star Trek Picard right now, and it's what I love. It's what's awesome about Star Trek. It's the teamwork. It's the fact that all of these people are coming together to make this one awesome thing work. Um, uh, yeah, and that scene with like just the fact that, and I think I'm probably using the rebuilds more so as my like frame of reference for this, but you literally see like all of Japan come together to fight this one Ava. You see like the highways are full of armored trucks and stuff, and like there even in the rebuilds there's a couple of shots of like normal civilians watching this thing happen. um and it's just really cool that feeling of like belonging. um Yeah.
yeah,
And then the other thing is the Ray thing. I really like. It gets a little weird, and I'm not sure. I'm not like. It gets a little bit weirder to think about once you actually know what her deal is. But I really like the fact that Ray just doesn't understand herself. I think like Ray is like, I'm feeling these things, but I don't know why I'm feeling these things. I'm thinking these things, but I don't know why I'm thinking these things. I'm attracted to him, but I don't know why I'm attracted to him. Um, and she's just like completely overwhelmed by it. It's, you know, this is it's one of those shows where I really connected with aspects of each character,
Yeah.
and I really didn't talk about this when I talked about it originally, but I really, really connected with that feeling that Ray had of I don't understand anything, but I want to. Like like I want to understand it all, and I think she does want to understand. But I'm completely overwhelmed by the fact that there's all these things I don't understand. Um,
One thing I really like about Evangelion, which is one thing that made it stood out around the time that it came out, is because it's very like you know the term shonen, right?
mm,
You ever watch like Dragon Ball, Naruto, any of those just big grand fighting shows? You know
no, I'm a toe dipper.
what?
This is the first full
Shonen
series.
is just like it's just like action stuff, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like
Okay.
in all of those, your protagonist is like this big, strong, or like super masculine, or like powerful being, you know?
Hmm.
And Evangelion, they're doing these grand over the top fights and all that, but the main cast, they're just people. You
They're
know,
just
they're just
yeah,
ordinary people. I like
yeah.
to I guess weird weird I guess connection, but like Shinji kind of makes me think of Spider-Man in a way because of the
I was
fact that like you thought the same thing?
no, yeah, I was yeah.
Cuz
there's
like
a bunch of connections to Spider-Man for
they're
me.
doing grand things, but like they're just people and you
Hmm.
see their humanity, you know? You
Yeah,
see like
yeah,
the struggles they go through.
yeah.
Um skipping ahead a little bit because if we talk about every individual episode, we're going to be here for hours. Let's jump
Yes.
to when Asuka is introduced.
Yeah, let's
Um
jump to when Asuka's introduced.
really fun episode. I
This
love his
episode,
face.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, cause they're
and
like,
I also got that rebuild mind cuz in the show the ocean looks normal, but
hmm
in the rebuild the ocean is just completely red.
hmm
But I'll get on that later. The episode when Asuka is introduced is so interesting because like we've only seen stuff in Tokyo, like
yeah,
Japan area,
yeah,
but we also know that the rest of the world is also making their own Evangelion units. You know, Asuka Langley is German actually,
yes,
um, and they sent her to help out with the I guess nerves team or something like that, right?
hmm
Something
I
along those
don't
lines. Really
remember.
fun.
I don't remember what the rationale is in the show for why she's coming to Japan.
I don't even think they delve on it a lot. Although I
Yeah,
feel like some of it might have to do with who she comes with, Mr. Kaji,
yeah,
who is an
yeah.
awesome character. Um, I'm so upset you didn't go more into him in the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
But
It's
like
one of those.
his moments, he doesn't have a lot of moments, you know, but when he does, they are so good. Mr. Kaji and Miss Masato have a past as they dated in college, which already makes tensions like super weird. And on top of that, Asuka is madly in love with Mr.
With
Kaji,
Kaji.
even though he's a grown ass man and Asuka is 14.
Yes. Yeah.
We have a very like opposite Masato and Shinji kind of dynamic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna just say this right now because it's I think the reason why they went to Japan is because Kaji is a double agent and he
Hmm.
is like looking to get information on Nerve and stuff. So that's
Hmm.
probably why they went there. Um,
Now Kaji's
an
working
awesome
for.
episode.
This is one of those layers that I kind of miss. Kaji's working for Sele, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure, but it's so layered, and there's so much coming at you all at once that some of the lore I even missed.
Yeah. And what is it? Asuka just has a very commanding and intimidating kind of entrance, which perfectly sums up her character.
Hmm.
And I know that when it comes to introducing a character, you have like 10 seconds
You have
to
10
wow the
seconds.
audience, or they're gonna lose interest, you know? And Asuka just takes complete control of the entire episode whenever she's introduced, even making like because Evangelion Unit 1 isn't there. but they get
Right.
attacked by an angel, so they have to use Asuka's Evangelion, which I have to argue is equally as cool and badass as Ava Unit One.
It's
I
so
kind of
no, no. I would
because the red and the white and orange design is just so cool.
no, yeah. I think I like the Unit 2 design almost more than Unit 1,
Yeah,
honestly. Like,
and what's fun about this episode is that they're on aircraft carriers and they have to fight this sea angel, and so it's very different type of fighting. As it's almost like you're watching like I don't no, I was gonna say like a Transformers movie, but it's like
yeah.
you see Evangelion Unit 2 use these giant aircraft carriers as like footstools, to like stay on
Yes.
while she's fighting.
Yes. It's another one of those episodes that exemplifies the thing that I love about this show, which is the fact that they'll do these batshit insane ideas like these plans. We're gonna literally sink two battleships so that they end up in the mouth of the angel, and then we're gonna fire cannons inside the angel. That's such an insane, like, there's no
But when
way.
you're watching it, it's so cool, and I'm like
Right,
rooting for them.
right.
And
Um,
and nothing has to make sense because it's an anime,
it's an animated show that, yeah, like, going into it, going into any animated show, you're like, it's an animated show. They don't have to obey all the laws of physics. Um, yeah, there's so much. They pack so much into these 23-minute episodes. Like,
Yeah.
um, oh God, like literally in this episode, for some reason it really hit me when they're fighting and it's all like clear blue water, and then they go underwater and you see all the ruins of like
Yes.
the world.
The world.
That, like, it was so fast because it's kind of like I think I mentioned this when I talked about it on the podcast. It's such a representation of what this show is. It seems
Yeah.
like a fun action show, and then you get under the surface and it's like deeply broken.
Yeah. Um. What is it? I don't know where I should jump to next. No, I don't want to jump to. One of my favorite things about watching Japanese things is that the translation can get kind of funky sometimes. There's a scene when Kaji is trying to talk to Shinji about flirting, and they're standing by this like vending machine, and I guess Shinji picks up on it wrong, and he thinks Kaji is flirting with him. And in the English translation, he's like, "I'm not gay," and it's so stupid. Do you remember that
I
episode?
don't I don't
It's
remember the
so
scene.
early on.
I don't
He says,
remember the
I'm
scene.
not gay," or "I'm sorry, but I'm not a homosexual," and it's just and it's so funny because later on in the show, he basically falls in love with the boy, and I just think that's so
Yes.
ironic.
It's very ironic that Shinji is like, I'm not gay. Really, Shinji? Really? Um,
I'm trying to think of what probably the next like major key point would be.
well,
Um,
since we brought up Asuka, I think I talked about it a lot but Asuka's one of my favorite characters in all of media. So I guess the next point to jump to is maybe my favorite scene in the entire show, but they have to fight an angel that, or I don't remember, or the one that splits in half. They have to fight an angel
yeah,
that splits in half, so they need to like have very synchronized movements. So they learn a piece of music, which I haven't dived into it, but the way like I haven't thought about it really, but the way this franchise uses music, because later on in the rebuilds, music plays an important role in a character
mhm,
relationship. Um, Obviously, like Shinji uses music in a certain way throughout the entire series. Um, so the fact that uh they try and force Asuka and Shinji to like start getting along so that they can learn the music so they can attack the angel properly, um, is really cool. And up to this point, I was not completely sold on Asuka. I was not like I was like, this character, she's funny and I
she's
like
annoying.
she's
She's so annoying.
right. She's funny, she's kind of mean, but she's also really annoying, and she's being mean to Shinji, who's the main character, the guy I'm rooting for. And then you get this scene where um they're talk I need to rewatch it. They're talking about like sleeping in the same room, I think, cuz
because
Masato
Asuka happens to move in with Misato and Shinji,
and
and
then
she hates
Masato
it. She's very upset about
she's
it.
very upset about it. She thinks Shinji's getting kicked out when they start first move in. But they meet or not they meet, but they're talking about sleeping in the same room, and she makes this, and I think Masato had like gone out of town or something. Uh
She goes to a what is it? It was like a wedding or something, right?
I think so, cuz I
No, no, no. It was like a it was a presentation or something, and she goes with Kaji.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, this is the slice of life episode that you
Very
really
slice of
like.
life episode.
Um but they make this big huff about not wanting to sleep in the same room, and then in the middle of the night, Shinji wakes up and Asuka's laying right next to him. That scene just like blew that character wide open for me. Like I went from this character's really annoying to oh, I know you. I kind of am you. Um just like cuz she spends all this time exploding, and then you get that scene where you kind of realize that she's just kind of begging for someone to tear down her walls. I don't want to get like too into it because it might get too personal, but um,
I think you gave a great analysis of Asuka on the podcast.
yeah, there's still so much to say, but you get that scene where she's like begging, and Shinji almost kisses her, and then they don't talk about it. And then they wake up and they have the fight with the angel, and they do it, and they crash, and they end up the angels are on top of each other, and she like calls Shinji from the other angel and is like yelling at him because he messed it up. Yeah, great episode.
It's a
But
good
yeah,
episode.
Asuka just really like blew wide open for me in that moment. And she kind of became the main character of the show for me, which we'll talk about it in the rebuilds, but it kind of hurts. Like she kind of I damaged my own expectations with Asuka,
Yeah,
because at that point she kind of became the only character I cared about for the rest of the show.
yeah.
And that which I think is fine. I think her role in the show is so incredible and so beautiful, and I think she is like a second lead. Um, I don't
Hmm.
know where I was going with this, other than the fact that I wanted to mention that sequence in that moment.
No, you're good. I'm a segue real quick
Yeah.
into the B plot of that episode, which is all about Misato and Kaji. And it is one of my favorite, like, I guess, like, it's technically a B plot, but there really is no,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
A B plot for Evangelion. It's all kind of
Right.
connected together. And it's basically Misato and Kaji go to this. I really don't even remember what they went to, but what matters is that they go to this party after,
Yeah.
and Misato gets extremely wasted, and you get to learn a lot about her character and
Yeah.
how she yearns for like affection, like physical affection, which makes a lot more sense of why she treats Shinji the way she does. It
Hmm.
seems kind of creepy that another person's doing that, but like Misato, the only way she knows to like express her feelings is through affection.
Right.
And I want to say it was Misato that broke up with Kaji, right?
Yes, I
I
believe
want to
so.
say yeah. And there's a moment when they're walking home, when Kaji's walking Misato home, that like what is it? She's so wasted. I think she like throws
Yeah.
up or something, right? And she just
Yes.
keeps saying like sorry, I'm so
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
But
Yeah.
you learn it's really not for like throwing up, it's for like the way she is,
Hmm.
you know? And the way she like treated him. I really
Hmm.
like that part of the episode just because it's very slice of life, and you get to like get a deeper dive into Masato, who I think is a
Right.
really interesting character, especially given her backstory, where
Yeah.
because Masato was there at the second
At
impact,
the second
which
impact.
happened 15 years before the first before the show, and that wiped out the entire southern hemisphere and the ocean. It's what like contaminated the entire ocean,
Hmm.
and she was there along with her father, who I never knew this. I never knew this until I started doing some more research. But Misato's father was partnered with Gendo for the entire human instrumentality kind of thing. Like he was in on it. He knew what Gendo
Mm-hmm.
wanted. It was
Mm-hmm.
something that kind of just went over my head as the show,
Yeah.
which is
Mm-hmm.
something I love about the show because like I've watched like what 3 years ago, and there's
Yeah.
still more I learn about it. You know?
Yeah, I think that gets revealed in the rebuilds, and it was one of those things where I'm like, to some extent, I think the rebuilds are canon to the entire show because I think it's all kind of one story. But I wasn't
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure because that gets mentioned in the rebuilds, but I wasn't sure if that was canon to the show. Um,
I like to think it's canon to the show.
yeah, it makes sense. Especially given like what they do with Masato. Like just the way that character is, because we haven't really talked about it, but she's an alcoholic. She's craving. I think a good way to put it is Masato's like craving pleasure. She's in so much pain, and has been like she was the only survivor from the South Pole, from the expedition to the South Pole in the Second Impact. I believe, pretty sure she's the only survivor,
Yeah, she's the
and
only survivor, only one that survived it.
and like you meet her. I think it's in high school where Ritsuko's taught where she meets Ritsuko. And by that time, she's Masato. She's very happy. She's very, funny and flirty, and uh, I mean, she's Masato. Um, just and just like I don't know, it never really clicked up until like right now. Just the amount of it's kind of similar to what Asuka was doing, where Asuka was like had to be the best and had to be better than everyone else and had to put other people down because it was all a deflection from the fact that she felt so alone and the fact that she didn't like herself. So she had to prove to herself more than anyone else. And Masato's kind of the same way of like she doesn't like herself, she doesn't understand why she's the only survivor. And so in order to mask that pain, she drinks, she flirts,
Yeah,
she
I like to
brings a
think that
14-year-old kid into her house.
I like
Yeah.
to think that Asuka craves attention
Yeah.
and Misato craves affection. You know,
Yeah.
I think jumping from this, since we've talked about them two enough, I think we should go back to Ray for a little bit
Yeah.
and jump to. I'll be real with you. I don't remember the numbers for any of these episodes, but it's when they fight. It was codenamed like Arm of God. It's the angel that had no arms,
Uh-huh.
and then it had like a paper kind of arm. The one that Ray fights.
The
The one that
one
kills Ray.
in the rebuild?
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no,
okay.
no. In the show, the one that kills Ray, kinda technically.
Kind of. Yeah,
It's a
I
it's a little yeah.
I don't know. I kind of don't
It
remember.
okay. It's the episode where Unit One goes berserk.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It kills Ray and then he freaks out and like
Yeah,
the arm gets torn. I think the reason I kind of forgot Ray dies in that episode because it's the episode where the arm gets torn off and a human arm pops out of Unit 1.
yes.
um
What is it? That episode's so cool because it's another episode where you see the full might of Tokyo 3 as like the mountains around it aren't mountains, they're like military bases that have
right.
cannons, like
Right.
giant cannons, and everything is trying to take this angel down. And it's at another point when Shinji runs away because he doesn't want to pilot the Evangelion unit anymore. And
Hmm.
we completely skipped over it, but you talked about it a lot in the podcast. This is the episode after Toji pilots the infected angel unit.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
yeah, Shinji doesn't want to pilot the AV unit anymore because his father is an asshole. I think that's a really good way to summarize it.
Okay, yeah. So
And
this is the episode where he gets back in Unit 1 to save Ray. Okay. I'm with you. I'm
yes,
tracking now. I know where I
he's
am.
very like upset. He doesn't want to. Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, because he wasn't. They kind of like they didn't kick him out, but he kind of like just didn't want to do it. He got really upset, and so he runs away again. A big
Hmm.
theme in the show
Hmm.
is Shinji running away,
Yeah.
which is very like parallel to the author running away from all of his problems because he talks about that a lot. That's why Shinji runs away so much in the show. It's because the Ano he ran away from all of his problems rather than dealing with them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, But this leads to one of my favorite scenes, where you see Mr. Kaji again, and I think this is one of his last scenes as well. He is watering his watermelon garden,
Yeah.
and in the middle, like you see him watering his plants, and behind him is the gigantic Angel and Unit Zero fighting each other, and he doesn't have a single care in the world. He is
He
just
doesn't
watering his
care.
watermelons. He's just
Yeah.
watering his plants, and Shinji's like, why are you like this? You know?
Yeah.
And what is it? I guess Kaji. I can't remember the entirety of his speech, but he talks a lot about like facing your issues, you know,
Mhm.
and not being scared in the face of like certain death,
Yeah.
which is very parallel from the conversation they're having like right here, and then in the background is a
In the
giant
background.
monster fight.
Yeah.
And so Shinji decides he goes back and he wants to pilot the Ava unit. And as soon as he does, Ray is brutally murdered in
Yeah.
front of him. Yeah, the the angel thing. It doesn't have any arms, but then like it sprouts out these like almost like slicing paper things, right?
Yes.
And it
Yeah.
just cuts off the Ava unit's arms and it starts bleeding everywhere. And then it just kind of kills Ray. But what's really interesting is that like as Ray gets closer to death, a lot of her veins start like popping out of her,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then the moment when she dies, her Evangelion unit morphs into like what looks like a human, and
Mhm.
it's like it has like a ring above her, and then it just explodes, which is so confusing and trippy in the moment,
Right.
and
Right.
it's still confusing after the moment after you realize what really happened.
Yeah.
It's really confusing, but it looks so cool. And then Shinji just kind of loses it, and he tries fighting the angel, and the angel whoops his ass. But he goes into like a rage. Well, Shinji
Right.
doesn't go into a rage. The
The Ava goes
Evangelion
in.
unit
Yeah.
does, and it's revealed. It's a big reveal in the show that the Aven. It doesn't say it, but just watching the scene, you know, the Evangelion units are not robots. Big surprise. They are angels. Actually,
Mhm. Mhm.
they are angels. They were man-made angels that were repurposed to kill other angels,
Mhm.
and they're piloted by like humans and stuff. And this one goes completely berserk because they look like robots, but they look like I guess like human like, you know,
Mhm.
but obviously they look like robots. But when Ava Unit 1 goes berserk, it goes on all fours, human like arms sprout out of its
God, I
arms,
love
and
this scene.
its mouth opens up, and it's got like bloody teeth, and its eyes, it has like actual eyes with pupils and everything, and it goes on all fours, and it just goes ham on the angel. It just kills it, it rips its guts out, and it eats its heart, and
Mhm.
everyone's
Mhm.
just staring in like pure disbelief and horror, which is a very reasonable reaction.
Right. Right.
Um, yeah, and then Mr. Kashi gets shot.
Yeah.
That is the right. That's the same episode, correct?
I I
It's
think
either that
so.
episode or the one after.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
I think it's that episode. Honestly, this is one of those subplots that I don't remember very well.
I liked it just because I liked Mr. Kaji, and him dying
Yeah.
was kind of a bummer. But a big thing with it is that Misato actually knew they were going to kill him, but obviously there's nothing that she can do about that.
Mhm.
And Mr. Kaji, I feel like he also knew he was gonna die
Right.
because he leaves Misato a very like heartfelt voicemail on her voicemail thing, and she
Yeah.
listens to it, and it's either at the end of the Berserk episode or the one after it. She listens to it and cries because they both knew it was gonna happen, but there was nothing they could have done.
Mhm. Mhm.
But and I like to think of this as like the point of no return for the show, because after
Yeah.
that it
Yeah.
kind of just dissolves, and it's really hard to describe, but we'll try to speed through it, I guess.
Yeah. Because the entire show from that point descends into just like psychological torment for these characters.
Yeah. And
Um.
one of the coolest frames from the next episode is you see the aftermath of what happens to Ava Unit 1 after that. And
Oh
it's
yeah. Yeah.
blown
Yeah.
up. and it has bandages all around its face, but you can see its eyes, its teeth, its arms, and everything. So it's
Hmm.
it's a real human thing.
Yeah.
And then Ray Ray shows up, right?
Ray, yeah, Ray comes back, and she's in
Ray
like
shows
the
up, and everyone's just
bandages.
like, everyone's
What?
so confused, like she should be dead, you know. And that's when it's
Hmm.
revealed a little later on. Ritsuko reveals to the main cast that like Ray is a clone.
Ray's a
There's
clone.
thousands of her, and
Yeah.
they take them to this very cool area under Nerve where it's like, you ever been to an aquarium, you know, with the big wraparound walls? It's
Yeah.
like that, but it's just thousands and thousands
How's
of
it
Ray
sound?
clones just in there, in this like LCL, which is like this
Hmm.
orange
Hmm.
liquid that sustains life. It's like Fanta, like the
Orange
soda.
fit. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then from there on, it's kind of hard to describe, but man, everything just goes to shit. Psychological torment. Asuka is torn down after Shinji becomes better than her.
Yeah. And she like disappears for like 7 days in
She
in
does.
like the ruins of Tokyo 3.
Yeah. And then I think really the besides the ending of the show, I think the last thing we should really talk about is Kaworu. I think
Yes.
Kaworu, yes. He's really only there for like 2, 3 episodes, right?
Not even he's there for one. He's
He's
there
there
at
for one
episode
episode.
24 and that's it.
And that's
I
so, and he makes so much of an impact in that episode.
Yeah, like now that I have the new context of the rebuilds and I know how important that character is to like the whole thing. Now I understand, but even then, even just watching the original show, I understood that um Kaworu kind of makes the choice that Shinji gets to make. He
Yeah.
he Kaworu gets born, you think, um and like immediately falls in love with humanity through Shinji.
Mm-hmm.
Um and it's a really really sweet episode. And then you get the reveal that Kaworu is an
Is the
angel
angel.
and he's there to
Not just
trigger
an angel, he is the last angel.
he is the last angel and he's there to trigger the third impact.
Yeah, but he doesn't. I mean, obviously he'll
Right.
kill
He
before he
decides not
does,
to.
but he decides not to
Yeah, like
because
he lets Shinji kill him because he's like, I if I do this, everything dies, and I don't want to do that.
because he
You
loves
die,
humanity and he
and I don't
loves
want to.
it's highly debated on whether or not this is a platonic or not platonic kind of love, but he does fall in love with Shinji.
Right,
Whatever way you want to interpret that, there's different
right,
ways to interpret it.
right.
Because there's a scene where he says, "I like you," but in the original translation, it's "I love you."
I
But
love you.
because
Yeah.
Netflix is the way they are, they're like, "No, no,
No,
he says
no.
likes, not love."
He says no. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and one last thing I want to say about Carter is the scene where he dies is where Studio Giant Gynax, the studio that made it,
Hmm.
they started running into a lot of their budgetary problems. So there's a scene where Ava Unit 1 is holding Kaoru, like going to
Hmm.
crush him.
Hmm.
And that scene is almost a minute long.
Yeah.
But it's not a scene, it's just a single frame. It's a single, like 2 frames, because you can see him like moving up and down. But
Hmm.
it's really, really long sequence. And the first time I watched it, I was like, why is this going on for so long? You know, like it
It's
feels awkward. But while it maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but that scene is so powerful because it really shows like it's built tension obviously because it goes
Mhm.
on forever. It makes you wonder when it's going to actually happen.
Right,
But just that connection between Shinji and Kaoru, like he
right.
doesn't want to do it, but he has to. And I think that was a really smart move of making sure that's the scene that got carried on for almost a minute because they had to fill that runtime.
There is one other scene that has that because there's the
It's
elevator
in the
scene,
elevator with
which
Ray and Oscar.
which is the one that I noticed watching it because they don't say anything for like a minute. But in that
They
scene, I
really
was like,
don't.
I know exactly what's happening here. I understand exactly this show has done such a good job of developing both characters that I know exactly what they're fighting about without ever actually saying a word. And then they do say something, and it ends in the slap, and it's such a yeah, such a great scene. This show, I know there's like a lot of people who complain about some of those little quirks, but every single one of them worked for me. Every single one of those moments where like you just let a scene sit for a minute in complete
Yeah,
silence. You let a frame sit in complete silence, and it just maybe I don't know, maybe I'm like gullible when it comes to art, but it just completely worked for me. The entire thing completely clicked.
yeah. And I guess if we're gonna move on, I guess we could just briefly summarize it because you did do a delve into the ending a decent
Mhm.
amount,
Mhm.
and we have a lot more to cover.
Yeah,
The ending of the show is a very good 2 episodes, but not a great ending.
not a good
I think
finale.
not a good finale, and it would be a good finale if the show was bad, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
But the show is so unbelievably good and builds up so much, and the finale is just very blunt and very
Mhm.
quick. And
There's so many
it,
layers to the entire show, and then all for that last 2 episodes, it just picks one of the layers, which is fine,
exactly,
but that like if that's all we get, then I would like for you to settle all of the layers.
yeah. And in real world talk, Studio Gainax was going very, very low on money. And so they just did not have the funds to produce a
Mhm.
like spectacle
Mhm.
ending, which the author uh, Ano was very, very upset about. And this man was already extremely depressed, and not being able to
Yeah,
finish his
yeah.
show, which was supposed to cure his depression, with like the way he wanted to, just made it
Right.
so much worse. And the backlash from the fans was immense. He got like death threats. He got like so many different types of threats, and was like hated for a while because of the ending. Which like, yeah, the ending's not great, but I don't think it's that bad. I think it's a good
Yeah.
ending. It's a good
Yeah.
ending for the characters because Shinji is all this has been building up to human instrumentality, which is what Gendo's big plan is. We'll probably go more into that on the rebuilds,
Right.
or end of Evangelion too. It's basically the fusion of all human consciousness into one being, so there can be no more pain, no more hurt, and no more of that, which is correct. But also, Gendo's really only doing it so he can be with his dead brother
Right.
again.
Right.
Yeah, and in the show, Shinji is faced with instrumentality and he rejects it. He rejects it, and it's a big happy ending. Like, yay, you did it. Literally, the end of the show is everything fades away. Everyone's standing around him. They're like, congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Everyone says congratulations, and the show ends. And there's so much more to it. Like, the entire last few minutes takes place in like a studio, which is
Uh-huh.
draws a very big parallel between the author and Shinji because they are
Right.
universally the same person. And the animation, which I will say was very smart, gets like worse and worse and worse as the episode goes on. And because it's like the layers of the universe are being broken down, it
Right.
gets like you can see more of a parallel between Shinji and Ano, which is such a good idea. It just with the budget they had didn't work well, you know?
Yeah, I don't even know if it's because of the budget. I think it's just because like the entire show is about Ano. The entire show is about this person trying to deal with their own stuff, and like we'll talk about this through rebuilds. Uh, I don't know where I was going with that. um, but
I think they just didn't have enough time.
they didn't have enough time, and yeah, it's like I think they did. I think they did the best that they could with the budget that they had. I don't know,
Yeah,
like I don't know if I would have wanted to see the final confrontation with Sele if they had no budget to actually do it. If it
exactly.
like so I think picking Shinji's arc and just finishing that, I think is probably the best that they could do. Um
Yeah. because nothing else gets explained. Nothing else is like
Nothing else gets resolved.
nothing else
Nothing
gets
else
resolved.
gets resolved.
And
Yeah.
honestly, I feel like the end of the rebuilds is very similar to the end of the show, but like done the way he wanted to. You
No, yeah,
know?
we'll talk about it. I think
Yeah,
they're pretty much the same ending, but
yeah. But before we
whereas
get into the rebuilds,
yeah,
the
let's
movie we
actually
have to talk about.
right, we have to talk about the movie. Let's actually take a break real quick, and then we'll
Okay,
jump into end of Evangelion. Um,
end of Evangelion.
be right back. So, Neon Genesis Evangelion, the end of Evangelion. This is the movie that it's really just two extended episodes of the show, but it retcons episodes 25 and 26, the original ending, and
Because people hated
redoes
it
them
so much.
because because people hated it so much. So they go back. They went. Ano went back and redid it. And he redid it in a fascinating way. We'll talk about this when we go in and wrap up. But I think all three endings to this franchise are in conversation with each other. Like I don't think any of them exist complete. Like I think obviously in universe the original ending is no longer canon and this ending is canon. But I think go ahead.
I was gonna say you could make the argument that all of them are canon.
Yeah, you could definitely make the argument that all of them are canon. But especially meta, like within like the meta narrative. I, if that's a weird word, but within like the narrative of Anno's life, the first ending happens, the show ends, everyone hates it. So then Anno makes this movie that's like, you hated my movie, fuck you, basically. Um,
It's like his wrath.
it's like an attack on the fans, yeah. Um, and yeah, I'll let you take the lead on like the meta stuff. I just really quickly want to talk about the first half of this movie, which is Asuka's movie. Asuka's my favorite, one of maybe no, I've been thinking about this list way too much lately. One of my favorite fictional characters of all time, and this movie has one of the 20 there's a 20-minute segment because at the beginning of the movie Asuka's in a coma. We don't need to talk about anything that happens while Asuka's in a coma. We don't need to mention
Nothing
any.
bad happens. Everything is
Nothing,
great.
nothing bad happens while Asuka's in a coma. She sits in a room alone forever.
No one goes in that room. No
No.
one does anything weird.
um, yeah. So she's in a coma, and then Cele attacks Nerve. Cele attacks Nerve. So they take Asuka while she's in a coma, and they put her in her Ava and bury her at the bottom of the lake. Um, And then while she's buried at the bottom of the lake, she wakes up and she has this scene that I made a mistake when I was talking about it last time because I said that her mom was in the Ava. Her mom I don't think her mom is necessarily in the Ava, but she realizes that she realizes that she isn't alone. She realizes that she doesn't need to seek attention, and she has this like mantra that she says. She just goes, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. And then another voice that's like the memory of her mother is like, you don't have to die, why don't you live? One of the most beautiful moments in all of cinema, maybe. I don't know, I feel like I say that a lot. um But and then so she shoots up from this lake. She freaking picks up a freaking battleship, and then like the battleship falls apart. And you have like one of the most epic, entertaining, fun fight scenes in the entire series. And then that fight scene ends, and
Tragically.
I don't want to talk about the way that fight scene ends because this God. Well, while all this is happening, Misato has gone and found Shinji, and she's driving him back to Nerve, just like she did in the first episode. And they're trying to get back to Unit One. Um, and then while they're trying to get back to Unit One, Misato gets shot, and then She kisses Shinji, and
On
then
the
she's
lips.
on the lip, like a grown-up kiss. And then she's like, and then she says, "That's how grown-ups kiss. We'll do the rest when you get back later," which is so amazing and adorable, but also kind of gross.
Yeah. And then she blows up
And then
like
she
2 seconds
blows up.
later.
I
Boom.
love her. I love her final line. She's like, "I should have listened to Asuka and changed the carpet or something." It's such a sweet moment. Um, but yeah, Asuka has this great fight scene where she like kicks the crap out of Sele for like 15 minutes. And then
She's fighting these. They were like the artificially made
the
Avas.
yeah, the artificial
Army of
Avas,
Adam.
which are terrifying. Like I loved the like
So
organic.
cool.
I loved the way they looked. I loved like even the beginning, like the dove looking, like the wings and stuff. Um, and
I have a
then
picture for you. They're like a giant robot, but they're not really a robot. But just instead of a face, imagine a mouth.
just a mouth.
Just a mouth.
Like the asteroid worm from Empire Strikes Back. That's what they're like the asteroid worm from Empire Strikes Back with a robot suit. um uh but yeah, so she fights them and she's like, I have 20 seconds to fight them, and she does because she's awesome. She's amazing. She gets everything done. Sorry, I love Asuka so much. And then she fights them and she kills them. She kills them, and then the spear of Longinus like literally falls out of the sky and impales her. Because of course it does. Because of course it does. Um, Sorry, I'm still bitter about the fact that Asuka literally only gets one happy ending in this entire show, in this entire franchise.
Well,
Even then, I'm not
the,
sure it's
the
happy.
spirit Longinus technically didn't kill her. It sure hurt
Right,
her, but what
right.
really killed her
I don't.
was all
You.
the artificial Avas. I'll say it because you don't have the heart to say it.
I don't want to say it.
After she kills all the artificial Avas, they're slaughtered. They're like ripped to pieces. It's so badass. And it's Sele that sends the spear of Longinus. It pierces her right in her eye, and like the Avas have a weird thing to where if an Ava takes damage on a certain part of it, it's gonna hurt the pilot in
Uh
that
huh.
area if it's like critical.
Yeah.
So Asuka gets stabbed in her eye, and she loses power because the Avas are connected to a powerful source, and they only have so much like time.
Right.
And all of the artificial Avas, after being brutally murdered, slowly reform, rise back up, and they rip Ava Unit 2 piece to piece. They rip off its arms, they rip off its legs, and in a beautiful shot that's a wide pan, and you can't see it, but you can see the shadow of it, it gets pierced with dozens and dozens of spears, and then like vultures, they pounce on her and rip the organs out of the Ava unit and everything.
That
And
shot
you are
literally
shown
broke me.
a a horrifying shot a few
Oh.
minutes later
Oh.
of one of the Ava units holding the head of Ava Unit 2, and you can see its spine and its organs all flowing out of it. And that's what Shinji sees, and he loses his shit.
He loses it. And then he loses it so bad that he triggers the third impact. I love the fact that they actually roll credits on the episode in the middle of the movie. They roll credits.
Yes, that was so
You get
confusing.
you get an intermission just to sit there and cry over the last like 5 minutes. Just to like, I hate you, Otto. I hate you so much. And then the movie continues and you get one of the trippiest 45 minutes of movie I've ever seen. It's amazing. But yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and
So
talk
the
about it.
second half of the movie is very weird. That's all I. That's what I got to start off with. Weird path that goes down. It's mixes 2D animation and live action at the same time. There's actually a lot of live action elements
Mm-hmm.
in this, which is not an uncommon thing for Evangelion. They use that
Right,
again
right.
in the third ending. I think it's done better in the third ending, to be honest, but I really like it in the second ending. Um, but there's a lot of you see like a live action version of Rei and Kaworu as well, standing in the
Yeah,
crowd of a bunch of
yeah.
people in Japan walking by, and they basically give this really big and long monologue about what it is to be yourself, what it is, why do you exist? It's like one of the questions is like, why do you have hands? Why do you move? Why do you have eyes? And I really like that. And that's a very big. I like it because it's you're basically seeing what the author is thinking in
Right,
real time
right.
as he makes it, and you can see like the just like sadness that came over him after
Hmm.
this, like because like it's not just his show, it's like his child,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like all that he has to show for himself, and people just didn't like the way it ended,
Hmm.
and that it's depressing. It kind of consumed him for a while, and he went into a terrible depression,
Hmm.
and you can kind of see how he feels about it, and that's portrayed through Shinji seeing, and you get a lot of glimpses into Shinji's past, and there's a scene where it's like a child like Shinji, and he's building a sandcastle, but the sandcastle looks like the Nerve headquarters, and
Right.
Ray is watching him, which is such a cool scene because there's so many different ways to interpret it. Because Ray's like standing above him, and Ray is also his mother,
Hmm.
and the Nerve headquarters meaning like Shinji has complete control over it because he built it. But it's just such an interesting segment, and it's really hard to explain. And throughout all this, the third impact is happening, and a giant, humongous version of Ray
Right, yeah.
sprouts out from the nerve base, and it's like the size of the planet. And Shinji is like in the air. This is very biblical. It's a very
Very,
biblical
very.
movie because Shinji gets crucified. The Ava Unit 1 gets crucified on a cross, and all the artificial Avas like impale themselves and crucify themselves floating around him,
Uh-huh.
and Ava Unit 1 is like pushed into the giant Ray astral being or whatever, but
Hmm.
he's scared of it as first, and because he's scared of it, it shifts shapes, and it goes from looking like Ray to Kaoru. And when it does that, Shinji's like a bit more accepting of it,
Of course.
and while all of this is going on down on Earth, people are dying instantly. They are turning into this like LCL stuff we mentioned
Uh-huh.
earlier,
Uh-huh.
the Fanta soda stuff. They are just turning into that, and when that happens, they're being put into the big, what, how is it described, like every consciousness in one being.
Yeah, yeah.
That
The
that's what Gendo wanted to do all along,
right,
is put
right.
all consciousness together so there'd be no more pain and suffering.
I love that when they well, I love that when they die, they see like someone that they loved, or someone that they cared about, someone who made them feel good, and then Gendo doesn't see his wife. I mean, he kind of does
Gendo
because
does not get to see his wife.
he sees Ava Unit 1. He sees this thing he made her into, basically. Especially after like because we didn't talk about it, but after the thing with Toji, I like that. This is just me collecting my thoughts on it now. Because you think a lot about that the thing with Toji where Gendo literally takes over Unit 1 and uses Unit 1 to almost kill Toji. Um, but like you see you think about it from that perspective, but you can also think about it from the perspective of like Gendo took over his own wife, took control of his own wife and forced her to murder a child. Um, he made, and I know like it was her choice to get in. I think it was her choice to get to like test the Ava, but he made her into this monster, and that's who he sees when instrumentality takes him. Um,
Yeah, and standing around him, he has like it's Ray, right? It's Ray that's standing above him,
yeah,
telling
yeah,
him like, "You're a bad person."
yeah.
And then he sees his wife, the Ava Unit 1, and it's holding him, and it bites him in half, and he
Bites his head
dies.
off. Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting because every character gets put into instrumentality
Uh huh.
except for Gendo.
Gendo
You
just
don't see
yeah,
Gendo turn into LCL; he just dies.
yeah, yeah.
And a character we really didn't talk about because there's not a whole lot to say, but Fugutsuki
Hmm.
is Gendo's right hand man, and he does not agree with a lot of the things Gendo does. But one of the things one of the only reasons why he stays with him is that he was also in love with Gendo's wife, Yui. And before he dies, ironically, he sees Yui before
Yeah.
he dies, and not Gendo. Um, yeah, and so the rest of the movie is just this trippy kind of everyone's dying. You're seeing real world clips, a lot of like inner monologue philosophy,
Hmm.
and there's a sequence with Shinji on a train, kind of talking to like different cast members.
Right.
Like he talks to Ray, he talks to Kaoru. I think he talks to Misato and Asuka as well.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yes.
think because there's a scene where he's like sitting, and I'm pretty sure like Rei, Masato, and Asuka like completely crowd him at one point, talking
Yeah.
about like sex and you know,
Yeah. And it's an interesting scene.
because
I think
Asuka literally calls him out for the thing he did that we didn't
yeah,
talk about.
we didn't talk about because we don't need to talk about it. But I love this scene because I they kind of do it again at the end of the rebuilds, but the roles are flipped,
Hmm.
and we'll talk about that later. But I really, really enjoy this scene for what it is. And then at the end, Shinji kind of breaks the third impact and instrumentality, but it is far after the
It's far
damage is
too gone.
done.
Yeah.
It's far too gone. It's the world's literally destroyed.
Hmm.
And so after that, you could see him emerge from the ray being her eye, and then she dies and falls down to earth, which is a really really cool scene after
Hmm.
because it's Shinji and this Asuka like figure, sitting on a beach, and in the background all you see is just the ruins of the world, but you also see Ray's face, but it's only slit down to half, which fun fact is actually there's an old Renaissance painting that's very famous. I cannot tell you the name of it though, but it's like a framing of that because all it
Uh-huh.
is like a guy's face split down the middle above a
Hmm.
Red Sea, and that's what it's supposed to emulate. And honestly, I think you can wrap up this part because I like the way you talk about it, just the way you just described the final scene.
Yeah, so he wakes up on this beach and the seas are red and you see all the crucified like the crucified Ava series and Ray's body is like falling and he wakes up on this beach with I said it was Asuka, but it's really um
An
it's
amalgamation.
it's an amalgamation of Asuka, Ray, Masato. I think it's an amalgamation of all of the people who love Shinji. Gendo is
I
noticeably
think
not
it's I
there.
think it's more like all the women who loved Shinji,
Yeah,
or all
all
the
of
women that Shinji loved.
right, right. And he wakes up and he climbs on top of her and starts choking her.
Mm-hmm.
And she just reaches up and like puts her hand on his face, and he stops and he starts sobbing. Um, which I know I talked about it from the perspective of Asuka last time, because like it's Asuka. Because for me it was like Asuka finally realizing that if you want to connect with people, you have to tear down your own walls. You have to. So it's Asuka finally extending that olive branch and Shinji rejecting it. But I also think there's because in all of the YouTube videos that I've watched, one of the things that they talk about is a theme of this series being accepting the world as it is, accepting yourself as you are, and then working to make yourself better. I think
Yeah,
the fact that you just show Shinji and Asuka together in that moment, and she ends it with saying pathetic, but like there's also not like a sense of finality to that moment. Uh, like they're both still alive, they're both living on this world. So now there's the hope that because Shinji has this breakdown, you just see the breakdown. You don't see him like make choices like getting better. I don't know what I'm saying, but
no, I didn't get you.
um, so now there is this hope to that ending of now that he's had this breakdown, he now has the opportunity to make the world his own, to accept the disaster of the world, and then to make a life in it. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. I think the more I think about the end, the this ending, the more because it really is like depressing when you first see it, but it's also like kind of hopeful in a
There is a
certain
glimpse
way.
of hope, and
Yeah.
ironically, it's a glimpse of hope amongst like a destroyed planet. You know,
Right. Right.
I really like your interpretation of the ending. One of the things I like about this ending the most is that it's the most what is it, interpretable.
Right.
I don't know. That's not a
Interpretable.
word. Definitely not a word, but it's definitely the most interpretable
It's the most
of all
up
of them.
for interpretation. It's the
Up for
most
discussion
yeah, yeah.
because the show's ending and the rebuild's ending, while obviously both are both confusing, but you know what they mean. This
Right.
ending is a lot more kind of out there, up for discussion, which is what I like about it the most. But yeah, that is end of Evangelion. Ironically,
Yeah.
not the end.
Ironically not the end. But yeah, it this is what this movie, we just talked about a 26 episode series. This movie almost has more layers than the entire 10 episode series. Like, there's almost more to think about and more to reflect on with this than there was the entire show. Um, but yeah, that's the end of Evangelion. We saved enough time for the rebuilds, I think. Got the rebuilds.
Sounds good.
The the final leg of this
The
journey
journey.
that oh my god, has it been a journey? The Evangelion rebuilds or remakes or sequels or whatever that very they play a very complicated role in the franchise. Yeah, um I would love to hear your thoughts on, I don't know, the rebuilds as a whole. I know, yeah, I haven't talked about them yet, so there's lots to say.
Okay. There's a lot to say about the rebuilds. First off, Caleb knows a lot about the show. I know a lot about the behind the scenes because I am a diehard fan. As we said earlier, Ano had different ideas for the ending for the show, but he never got to do it. And
hmm
especially given that it was made in the 90s, right? I want to say.
90, I think the original show came out in 95.
Yeah. So obviously technology wasn't nearly as good as it is today, coming like from an animation standpoint. He always
Right.
had a grand scheme of it, but he was never able to complete it with the budget and the animation he had. So wanting to finally tell the story that he had built up in his mind and wanting to change things he didn't care for in the original show, Evangelion was a hit. Oh my god, it is one of the most popular animes of all time.
Yeah.
Um, but more than that, it's one of the most popular animes in like not Japan. You know,
Not
it
yeah.
was one of the animes that brought like Japanese culture to other parts of the planet, and it's such a popular series. It made billions of dollars. There's a
Yeah.
YouTube video out there explaining how you can survive every single day of your life living just off Evangelion merch. That's how much.
I
Yeah.
believe it.
So with the sheer amount of money Ano set out to finally redo Evangelion with the rebuild series, which was really cryptic as first because like, is it a sequel? Is it a
Right.
reboot? Long story short, it is a sequel. Um,
Right.
Getting this out of the way right now.
You wouldn't know
For
that from the
those
first movie.
you wouldn't know this from the first movie or any of them, but it's good to get it out of the way for context. Evangelion takes place in a loop, like a time loop of sorts,
Right.
where the universes keep repeating themselves. So we'll just leave that right there, and we'll talk about it more.
Right.
But we're gonna start off, and it has an interesting naming system. There is. I gotta look up the names. I know the
Uh
numbers, but I don't know the names. So
1.0.
there's Evangelion 1.0, 2.0, no 1.0, 2.2, right?
No, it's what well there's 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, but there's also the ones that I watched. There's 1.11, 1 or
Yeah,
2.22,
there's alternate
3.33.
namings from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna just do the point oh, okay?
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
easier.
there's Evangelion 1.0, Evangelion 2.0, Evangelion 3.0, and then Evangelion 3.0 plus 1, because in Japan, 4 is an unlucky number. Has nothing to do with the movie, it's just a cultural
Right.
kind of thing. I always thought it was so weird, and then I looked it up, and you know, but 1.0 is, I'm not gonna call it a cash grab because it's good. But 1.0 is basically the first 6 episodes remastered with a couple extra scenes and a couple of
Mhm.
scenes cut
Right.
because it's a movie, you can't fit all that in. And there's two big reasons it was like this. One, because who doesn't like a good remaster?
Right. Right.
And two, because that's what's going to sell for a series this popular, despite how controversial it's been with the endings and everything.
Right.
Seeing the first 6 episodes remastered made it sell so much. It was a very, very, like, it grossed really high. I could not tell you any of the numbers, but man, it made a lot of money, and Ano needed a lot of money to be able to make the next 3 movies
Right.
because you'll yeah.
Yeah.
Granted,
I
that's
will
probably
say, like he needed a lot of money, but I can't imagine how much how much the final fight with the Triangle Angel. That is one of like this is not this of even of my ranking of the rebuilds. I think this is number three. Um, that final fight is one of the coolest things I've ever seen on film. The music, the design of the angel, the 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 character dynamics. That final, it's in the original show, but this is random, but they reframed that final that conversation between Rey and Shinji where she says farewell, where they're talking about why they pilot the Avas, so that they're sitting between the two Avas. So it cuts between the shot of Shinji sitting with Ava Unit 1 in the background and Rey sitting with Unit 0 in the background. Just a really cool shot. But yeah, uh,
yeah,
yeah. I
yeah.
don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, that final like
uh,
20 minutes is
I mean,
amazing.
it's hard to talk about the first movie given that we just went over the entire show, because it's essentially the first 6 episodes, and we went over the first 6 episodes pretty much.
They
And
did
it's
cut my
just
favorite
that
shot
the
though.
remaster, they do
They cut
cut a couple scenes.
they cut because they're in the first episode of the show. There's a shot of Shinji and Masato and Ritsuko on a like a diagonal elevator in front of like the tank that Unit 1 is in, and as they're doing it, it's a long shot, and you just see Unit 1's hand like hovering in the background. The fact that like that's like one of my favorite shots in the entire franchise, and it's not in the movie, so I was like, damn, they lost a little bit there, but it's
That
fine.
is definitely a shame.
The other thing that they cut that I wish they hadn't cut is they cut a lot of Toji and Ida, um, and like I maybe it's because I had just rewatched the 6 episodes that I've the first 6 episodes is the only thing I've rewatched. Um, but I really, really connected with episodes like 3 and 4, which are about Toji and Ida. I really, really like those this time. And the fact that all of that gets cut, although they do add like a little phone call where Toji and Ida both call him right before the final fight and leave a message. That I really liked. But yeah, overall, this
So
is pretty solid. If a
I
little,
forget, is Mari teased at the end of this movie or no?
no, no, she doesn't show
No,
up till
she
the second
shows
one.
up at the beginning of the
Beginning of
second movie,
two.
correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
So
Cowder is teased at the end of this
is
one.
teased, yeah. So if you're cool moving over to the second movie, I'm cool moving over to the second movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because as great as the first movie is, it's a great movie. It's just the first 6 episodes,
Right.
but it's beautiful. It's
It's
such a
no,
beautiful
yeah.
movie.
It's a great remaster, but it is just a remaster, and they rush a couple things. I really enjoy it, but I think I'd
And
rather
I
just
don't
rewatch
blame
the
them for
show.
rushing or cutting things, because
Right,
six
right, right.
episodes is what? That's like almost 3 hours, and this movie is only 2.5 hours, correct?
It's like 110 minutes. It's like a little bit over an hour and a half.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, these movies are long. Granted, we just said an hour and a half for the first one. The rest of them are really, really long.
Yeah.
The last movie is almost three. It's like 3 hours, right?
It's like
Two
two,
and a
yeah,
half,
like two and a half to,
2.5, almost
yeah,
three.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna
Um,
move to the second one.
yeah,
So,
which
would
I
you like
have
to
the
start off?
most to say about.
I will let you
Or
start off.
no, I definitely have the most to say about four actually. But
I have most
uh,
about four.
um, This movie introduces Mari, uh, who is a character that I have very mixed feelings on so far. Just
She's a very controversial
she's
character,
a
and you're not
I
alone.
I like the character. I like flirtatious characters. I like watching. They just bring like a nice energy to shows, a nice like fun. And she's a very flirtatious character, and I really like that. Um, Also, she has like the Ava that she's in the beginning of this episode that gets in the beginning of the movie that gets destroyed is really cool and completely different from anything we've ever seen. Um, yeah, but also she like doesn't really doing anything in this movie. Like, I mean, she does. She sends Unit 2 berserk at the end, which is the first
Yeah.
time in the rebuilds that you actually see a an Ava go berserk. Um,
A fun fact about Mari, uh, interesting enough, while it's never been officially confirmed, it's very widely speculated that it because it's been a while between the show and the movies,
uh-huh,
is that in that time Ano did his life did get better and everything. He did get married and met a very like he met his wife in that time and got married and
uh-huh,
everything.
uh-huh.
So a running theory that I honestly believe I like to think is true is that Mari is a bit of an extension of his wife,
That tracks,
which
especially like
that'll
given
that'll
the
come
ending.
that'll come more into play later.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, that makes perfect sense. Um,
you can continue.
and that was kind of a theory that I had. Like, I feel like she represents something that happened in his life in between the last like the end and now. Um, but yeah, Mari doesn't do a whole lot like other than the fact that, especially making that make sense, her interactions with Shinji, she's like the first character to really pull Shinji out. She's the one who puts him back in Unit 1 at the end when he leaves to go after Rey sacrifices herself. Which, oh my god, like, I couldn't remember if it was exactly the same in the original show, but Rey's sacrifice in this one, where she's like, I have to make sure Shinji never has to pilot Neva again. Rey in this movie, I'm being very ADHD, but Rey in this movie is so like it's the best development I think we've gotten for that character. Like, she's extremely well developed in the show, don't get me wrong, but I loved the very simple act of like she wants to bring Shinji and Gendo back together. She wants to have this dinner party. She's like teaching herself to cook. Um,
I love the dinner party. It's so cute that she like wants to like have everyone
yeah,
be friends. Obviously, the
yeah,
dinner party never happens.
never
I don't know why,
happens.
but never happens. But I mean, like, just the times when Ray shows like humanity, it's just great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, I love the very complicated. We talked about it with the slap, which happens in the first movie and in the original series. I love the very complicated, complex, and a little bit ambiguous relationship and attraction that she has to Shinji. Um, and the like the way that they kind of play into each other. All culminating in I have to make sure Shinji never has to pilot an Eva again. She literally sacrifices herself to keep Shinji out of an Eva, and then she dies, and Shinji decides to get back in the Eva, which is such a cool moment because it's and I mean Misato literally says this. It's Shinji deciding to do something for himself. Even though he's doing it to save another person, but he's not getting in the Ava because someone told him to. He's getting in the Ava because he's found something he wants to save. And yeah, also
Yeah,
we get the reintroduction of Asuka, who I have a lot to say about Asuka and the rebuilds, and I'm sure some of it will come up. Most of it, I'll probably save most of it for the fourth one, just because that's where she's kind of the most involved. Although she is very involved here. But they make a lot of changes to that character that I think are okay. I prefer her character in the original show. She's just less important to this story. She's less important to the rebuilds than she was, because I really think she is like a second lead in the original show. Even though
So
she
like
gets introduced. So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like from the rebuilds and the show, I feel like Asuka and Rey kind of swap places. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
because Asuka's really important in the show and Rey's just kind of there half the time.
Uh
And
huh.
Rey gets so much like screen time and character development, but Asuka's kind of sidelined, which
Hmm.
honestly, I'm okay with.
Yeah, like I'm okay with it because I really love what they did with Ray. I really love what they do with Ray in the rebuilds. And you do still get like it's very kind of truncated because like we didn't really talk about it, but the Toji thing, where I mean we did talk about it towards the end, but Toji Toji getting in the Ava and the Ava getting infected by an angel, that gets switched so Asuka's in the angel Ava. Um, and Shinji is basically like forced to kill her. Um, he believes he killed her, which, dude, I
It
was
looks
so
like he
mad.
killed her.
It
I don't
look
see how she survived that.
she doesn't pop up till she doesn't pop up at all the rest of the movie. Um,
Yeah,
but uh, Shinji, I forgot what I was saying, but like you do still get moments with Asuka. Like you get a version of the bedroom scene. It's very different. Um, and a little bit more like because I think they do like they take Asuka's arc from the entire show and do like the entire and do most of it in this movie, in this one movie. So like the bedroom scene specifically is like her realizing that she doesn't have to be alone. It's the bedroom scene is what basically what she did at the end of Evangelion. It's her extending an olive branch. And it's still a really beautiful scene where she's like, "You can call me Asuka," because I think he's calling her Miss Langley at that point or something. Um, or Miss why they changed her last name in the rebuilds for some reason. I think it's like Shikanami or something.
something like that. I remember that.
Um,
Um, yeah, yeah. The
um,
second movie's pretty cool. I enjoy it a lot. Mari gets a lot to do near the end,
you get the yeah.
because Asuka is hospitalized, but we think she's just
Hospitalized. We
dead.
think she's dead.
Because the
Um,
scene where, like, all I have to say is that, like, when a pilot goes in an Ava, they're in like a tube. They're in
mhm,
like a little tube that pilots it,
mhm.
and Ava Unit 1 puts the tube in its mouth and crushes it, and blood spews out and everything. And I thought Asuka was just dead. I was like, well, she died again, you know? That kind
Yeah,
of
I
sucks.
was
It's
so
Mari in the
bad.
second
I was
movie.
so bad. Like,
Man, if she survived, I'd be
luckily the third movie was
so
already
happy.
out, and like I had seen the poster for the third movie, and she's on the poster, so I was like, she's on the poster. She's on the poster. Don't. This is not the end of the world. Um,
Yeah, but the entire final fight is spectacular. The
it's
animated
amazing.
work is so cool. It's
Hmm.
very similar to the first when it happened in the show, how we described.
Uh huh.
Um, but it's a little bit different, I guess. First of all, when Ray's Ava unit dies, it's not as angelic as the first time.
Hmm.
When it's in
Hmm.
person, she just gets eaten.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
eaten, and all that's left is like the legs. Just completely swallowed whole, and Shinji sees it like right in front of him, and
Hmm.
it's traumatizing. And Mari pilots Ava Unit 2 because Asuka is hospitalized,
Hospitalized.
and she goes berserk in it, which is so cool. And watching that, like, I thought only Ava Unit 1 was the only thing that could like go
The
berserk,
fact that she makes the
but
choice to make it go berserk, like she already
yeah, because
knew.
like she could do it at will, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Just
It's such a cool scene, and then Shinji gets into the Ava Unit 1, and they kind of, what is it? Oh yeah, because Ava Unit 2 runs out of power as soon as it gets
yeah, yeah.
Shinji to Ava Unit 1. So it's Shinji against the
The angel.
seventh.
Yeah, something like that. The
We're just gonna
name
say
the
seventh.
Yeah.
probably wrong.
The
Um,
numbers are different in the rebuilds too. So
yeah. So as he fights the seventh angel, it's obviously he's not even winning. Like all that build up, and he really doesn't win at first.
right, right.
But then Ava Unit One goes berserk.
AV Unit
Uh,
1 goes berserk.
and it's so cool because he gets his arm ripped off too.
Hmm,
He,
hmm,
unlike in the show, his arm gets
hmm.
completely ripped off, but when it grows back, it's like a burst of light, and it looks
Yeah,
like his
yeah,
arm.
yeah.
And he just starts just mutilating this monster like in the first one, but something
Hmm.
different happens this time. He he wants to save Ray because he's like Ray is still inside of there, you know. And
Right.
so whenever all angels have like a red heart, and if you break that, they die.
Hmm.
And when he gets to it, he like shoves his arm inside of there, and it's almost like it phases in there. And every unit one keeps like trying to climb into the angel's heart to find Ray, and he finds Ray eventually. And the closer and closer he gets to Ray inside of there, on the outside, you see kind of like this giant red circle appear in the sky, and they start floating, and he's triggering the third impact from the
Yeah.
second movie. uh, I was so surprised. I was like, "Holy shit! They did
Right,
the
right.
impact already." Okay, that's cool. And everyone's like, everyone. I mean, they can't really do anything, you know. They're just humans, so the rest of the cast is just kind of watching in horror, you know. And they play this song. I can't remember the name of the song because it's Japanese, but the song they play is it's awfully like sweet
Hmm,
because
hmm.
it's sweet that like Shinji's trying to save Rei, but like what you're seeing is the world being destroyed, you know, because it's sung by a choir of like children, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like children, and as Shinji gets like closer and closer, he saves Rei, kinda. He finds like Rei's soul, I guess,
yeah. Hmm.
and he brings it into the cockpit with him. He like holds her, and it's such a sweet moment.
It's such a great
But then
moment because, and
it's
like,
so
she has the
sweet,
Walkman.
and she's holding the Walkman that he gave, and you know. But then it cuts to the outside, and the world's being destroyed. You know,
Yeah,
and before the world gets completely destroyed, Ava Unit One gets pierced with the spear Longinus. Right, it's Longinus,
yeah, yeah.
and hovering above him is another Ava unit that's piloted by Kaworu, which is
It's
one of
like,
the
dude,
coolest twists ever.
nah,
Because
because like, a this is in a post-credit scene because it ends with
it, yeah,
the movie actually ends with Ritsuko being like, "It's the end of the world," and then
yeah,
credits
it's such a
roll.
bleak, it's such a bleak ending because when I first watched it, I never saw the end credit scene. I
Dude.
thought the movie genuinely ended like that. And I was like, because they were like, it's the end of the world. The third impact is here. And that's just how the movie ends. And I'm like, what the hell? And then eventually I saw the post credit scene where Kaoru like smites Shinji with the spear and makes them all fall back. I can't remember what he says though. He
He
says something.
says, he says something like, "The appointed time has come, Shinji. This time I will make sure you're happy." Which is like,
Yes.
which when I heard that I was like, "Oh, the entire thing makes sense now." The entire like the these are not reboots. These are sequels. It's all
They are
connected. Oh my
sequels.
god.
It's in a loop, and the only one who is aware of this loop is Kaworu because he's omnipotent. You know,
Hmm, hmm.
because there's a really cool scene where Kaworu rises from this grave. You know,
Hmm,
on the moon,
hmm.
and when you it pans to the left of him, and all you see is just like a row
A
of just
row. Yeah.
hundreds of graves that go all the way in a circle.
Yeah.
Like this is not the first time this has
This is
happened,
not the first time, dude.
and it's a very big cliffhanger movie. Uh, and I guess if you're ready, we can segue into the third.
Yeah, because then you get the third movie and it takes that cliffhanger and does something completely different with it.
It does something completely different. Up until now, it's been very Evangelion. You know,
Hmm,
like if you
hmm.
watch the show, you could 3 and 4 are very different,
Right.
and I like that. I really like that. I know some people don't, but I like it because Ano is doing what he wants. He's finally able to do what he wants, but he doesn't care, you know, because
Yeah,
he has
yeah,
all the money in the world.
yeah. Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I don't love three so much, but I think four brings the entire thing together. 4 makes the
I
entire
think
thing make
four.
sense.
I think four makes three a better movie
Yes, yeah, completely.
because you open up on four. You open up on three, and it turns out there is a 14-year gap in
Well,
between the two
you open up
movies.
on 3 and Asuka's still alive. And it's like, wait,
She's
what?
still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, we learned there's a 14-year gap, which is already crazy, And it's also revealed that I don't think this comes up in the show because it doesn't really need to, but apparently Ava unit pilots don't age.
They brush
So
over that
Shinji
like
is still the same age, Asuka is still the same age, but everyone else is so much older because it's
mhm
been 14 years.
mhm
And it's revealed that it wasn't the third impact, but they called it the near third impact that Shinji triggered at the end of the second movie. And it just kind of destroyed a lot of the world. And they resent him for it. They
mhm
resent Shinji for it. Everyone's so cold and hates him now. Which, like, on one hand, you're like, that's kind of mean. Like I
Yeah,
get it.
I was like
You get
completely
why,
confused by it. No,
but
I
you
like
don't.
you don't really get why because they don't like you see Cowder stop it and then but you don't really get like the story with Kaji stopping Lilith and all of that. You don't get that until like 4
The fourth
basically.
movie.
Yeah.
So this whole movie, you have no context as to what
Right,
happened in
right.
those 14 years.
Which is why on its own 3 doesn't really work for me. But once you get 4, the entire thing makes sense.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it's best to just kind of say what happens. Is that like basically it was like an anti Lilith, right? That was created
Right.
or something.
Right.
That
Yeah.
was going to kind of destroy the whole world and cause instrumentality or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Uh-huh.
third impact, and they stopped it, but at the sacrifice of like a lot of people, and also Mr. Kaji dies sacrificing himself for it. So that's why Misato really, really hates Shinji at the
Mhm.
beginning of this movie. And another
Also,
big reveal, which I'm just gonna say, is that Misato ends up having a kid. She has a child,
which I
and she
love so
abandons
much.
that child. She abandons that child just like Gendo because she can't bear to be around him.
Yeah. She can't bear the fact that she failed to save Kaji. She can't and she thinks that it's her fault that she lost Kaji and she thinks like that she thinks that she's going to lose her son the same way, and it's gonna be her fault again. Yeah, I love we're talking about 4 already, but I love which we haven't even talked about. I mean, there's stuff in
I
3
know,
to
but
talk
four
about,
is so good.
but
Four is so good.
do no because like in the second one I don't know why, but the fact that they did the dummy plug in the second one and Gendo for some reason it made me more mad than it did in the show. The fact that Gendo took control of the Ava and killed and like tried to kill Asuka. Maybe because it was Asuka because, I love that character. But for some reason that made me more bad. And I texted you and I was like, hell no, Gendo's irredeemable. Gendo needs to
Gendo's
freaking die.
irredeemable.
And then
He
and
is.
then and of course this is the timeline where they redeem him. Because of course they do, and it's great, and like I understand it. He's completely wrong for everything he did, but I get it almost. Like
You just get it for love.
I understand why he abandoned Shinji. I understand why. Yeah.
Continuing on with three, I guess.
Yeah, we got
uh,
because we haven't talked about Kaworu and Shinji yet,
yeah, talk about Counter
which
yet.
is such a
So,
sweet. Yeah.
so Shinji learns that he did not save Rei. Rei died. Rei was dead. She was already
Yeah.
long dead, which already makes him very upset. And he's held prisoner, and they put a band around his neck that will kill him instantly if he tries to pilot an Ava. And shortly after this, though, Nerve, well, so he's awakened because they shot his Evangelion unit into space, and he was on a recovery mission with Asuka and Mari. They brought Shinji back from
hmm
that,
hmm
and shortly after, though, because shit was it Mari, Asuka, Misato, all of them, they're no longer a part of Nerve. They are actually
Right.
part of an anti-Nerve group. I forget what it's called, but
Villa or Willa. Villa.
Yeah, will something like that.
It's spelled with a
Shortly
W, but they
after,
pronounce it Villa.
maybe like 5 minutes after they get Shinji, Nerve strikes and they
Yeah,
kidnap Shinji and bring him back. Um,
and
we
it's
also see that
Ray.
Asuka is alive and she has an
Yeah,
eye patch
I love
and
that
wears a cat
scene.
hat for some reason.
I love that scene where she comes in. I don't have my phone, but literally my phone background right now is Shinji in or is Asuka in 3 in that scene with the hat. But I love that scene where she comes in with her hands in her pockets and she's all grumpy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that scene.
but yeah, Nerve kidnaps Shinji and brings him back, and we see Gendo is sporting a very cool visor thing now, just to make him look even more evil. You know, he's wearing this
it's
like
the,
Cyclops like visor.
it's the visor that the leader of Sela had basically from the
Yes,
original show.
exactly.
Yeah, to show that
And
he's in
so
charge. Sela ain't in charge no more.
now it's three gets fuzzy. I'm not gonna lie, because a lot happens, but also
Um,
not a lot happens in
also
three.
not a lot happens. Like the biggest thing in 3 for me was the jar because the one that saves him, the one that kidnaps him, the when is Unit Zero piloted by an Ayanami series, piloted by Ray, and he's
The
like,
Ray clone.
and he thinks it's the one he saved. He's like, I told you guys, it's Ray. Oh my god, I forgot to talk about Suzuhara. I forgot to talk about Toji's sister. Cause like I haven't talked about Toji's sister at all, going back to the original show. Anyway, Toji's sister's great. But uh,
Because I think in this timeline, it's never revealed to the main characters that Ray is a clone.
hmm
Correct?
hmm
Yeah.
um,
So this is kind of how he learns.
I think Asuka knows in 4. I
Yeah.
think.
I just don't think Shinji knew at the time.
Right.
Yeah. So he's saved by an Ayanami clone, a Ray clone, and they bring him back to the base, the Nerve headquarters, and Shinji's obviously very distraught that a clone of Ray is, but it's not the Ray that he knew, not the Ray that he bonded with and everything.
hmm
And this clone is just normal, lifeless Ray. And what the part that I like about this movie is basically this whole sequence of him at Nerve between his interactions with Kaoru and Ray. Like, he tries to get Ray to be
hmm
what he thought like what he remembered her as, and he brings her books because we always
Yeah,
know Ray liked reading, and he brings her like dozens and stacks of them, and she doesn't read any of them, and they
he
just keep
doesn't. Yeah,
piling up. And he meets Kaoru, and I love all the piano scenes just because they're like, I don't know,
I
they're kind of cute.
I love the fact that like it's never set up that Shinji knows how to play piano, but he just starts tapping keys with Kaoru, and then by the end of it, they're both like playing this really great piece of music.
Because this whole sequence spans over like a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because he's there for a while,
hmm
and what is it? He bonds a lot with Kaoru, and eventually they are both tasked with piloting in like a super Evangelion, which is a
That,
really cool design. It's basically Unit One, but bigger with like
but
four
bigger.
arms.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah,
yeah.
4 arms, and they're sent on a mission, and they're given the spears. Right? I want to say
They
they
have
get
to
the
go get the
spears.
spears. They have
They
to
have to go
go.
get the spears.
Yeah, because
They get
they're
the spears
in.
from the bunker area of the original
Yeah,
Nerve
because
Center.
one of them is in the unit that Kaworu came down in, and the other one is in Lilith, the corpse
Yeah,
of Lilith, or yeah, or the corpse of Adam, or whatever. I guess it's
it's
Lilith.
Lilith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so they bond and they get in the Ava unit together. But before they do, Shinji's like, "Yo, I can't pilot an Ava or I'll blow up," you know. And
Right.
Kaoru manages to take off his necklace, and Kaoru puts it on himself. And so I'm like, "Oh, that's cute. That's not gonna come back to bite them later." Shinji and Kaoru they pilot the Ava, and they make their way to the Nerve headquarters, and Asuka and Mari are there to stop them, and they have a really really cool fun fight.
Yeah.
Um, what is it? They fight for a while, and it's
Yeah.
just like the CG and animation of the fight is just great. It's just
Yes.
so good. The Avas look awesome. The Avas just look so cool. Um, I'm gonna talk more about the animation for the Avas in the fourth one, but I'm really excited to talk about like how they made these movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm gonna just get to the interesting part. Kaworu blows up a
Dude. It's
huge
such a
desert.
heartbreaking scene. Cause like
It's like right after they get the spears, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cause
Yeah,
they
and
set
the
it,
cliff.
just like the specific scene, they set up that Shinji and Kaoru are in separate plugs, but when they're actually in the Ava, they look like they're right next to each other. So and Kaoru is about to the collar's about to explode, and so Shinji is like trying to climb over and like take the collar off, but they're in separate tubes, so he can't get
Yeah,
through. And then
Shinji's
it's
facial animation
oh
in
my
that scene
god,
is
yeah, yeah,
uncannily realistic. You can
hmm
see every wrinkle and tear and like
yeah,
tweakiness as
yeah,
he's just screaming, and it looks so good. And Kaworu's head blows up right in front of Shinji.
hmm
Traumatizing.
traumatizing. And it
But
does
yeah,
like what? Yeah, he still gets the spears. Almost triggers the fourth
but they
time
end up
back.
being identical. That's right, right?
Yes,
Because they're
yeah,
supposed to be different spears, but they end up being identical for some
uh huh,
reason.
uh huh. I don't remember why they ended up
And
being identical, but
me neither. Honestly, I could not tell you how the fight ended. All I know is all the Ava units kind of got broken, and then they were stuck in the desert.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, at the very end, the movie ends off with what is it? Shinji, Rei, and Asuka, the original three. All of their Ava units are destroyed, and they're just kind of there in the middle of the desert of this like ruined landscape, and they just start walking, which is the end of the movie. Another
hmm
very big cliffhanger. I could not tell you where Mari went because I do not remember.
I don't. Somehow she ends up in Paris at the begin by the beginning of the
Yeah,
next movie. That's like, but
her and Asuka. No, no, yeah, just her.
no, yeah, because I love that final shot with Asuka like just dragging Shinji, because he goes into that like completely defeated state of like I can't do anything. I completely messed
Yeah,
everything up. The person that I love just died in front of me and it was my fault. Um, which is exactly where he was in the end of Evangelion. Um,
which kind
and
of puts
then
him at a parallel to Gendo at the same time. You know?
yeah, yeah. And then Asuka kind of fills that Masato role in a weird way because like you mentioned you like seeing these. This is in a text. I don't think this is on the podcast, but you mentioned you like seeing these characters after the 14 years, seeing the way they changed. Um, and I like when you said that, I thought about Masato and the way Masato had changed, but also Asuka has changed. Like, because she's a lot less like she seems like she needs to prove herself less. I mean, she definitely doesn't understand why Shinji is so defeated. She definitely doesn't understand why Shinji can't. Because when she was defeated, she got up and tried harder, tried to prove herself harder. Um, so she definitely doesn't
Shinji just
understand
breaks
it.
down.
Yeah, Shinji just like completely crumbles. Um,
She's like the
but
definition of like, why are you sad? Just be happy or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah. But she's definitely like I don't know more stable. She's found like she's she feels a lot better, I guess. It felt like. Um and so you get that final scene of her like yelling at Shinji, but also like trying to help him and like literally dragging him, which is one of the things I loved about her in the original show too. When she we didn't talk about it, but the episode where Shinji finally gets confidence and then gets sucked into a pocket dimension and like
Yeah,
like yes, she's in that episode. She's yelling at him and being very mean about it and very blunt about it, but she's also completely right. Um, she definitely she manages to both be very broken herself while also helping Shinji,
yeah.
helping other people, which is one of the things that I really like about her, and she continues to do
Yeah.
that in this. Anyway, we should probably talk
That
about
that
four.
cliffhanger is very, very heartbreaking
Yeah.
because when I watched this, the
Oh
fourth movie
no.
was not out. I had to
Ah.
wait months. So
I can't
I was
imagine
very lucky.
because it was 9 years between the third movie and the fourth. I can't imagine what that was like. I cannot imagine what that was
And
like.
I watched the third movie maybe like a year before the last movie came out. So I didn't even have to wait the 9 years, but the
Yeah.
7 years wait in general was terrible.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Um,
I guess now we can talk about the final one.
yeah. Um, God, I love this movie so much. Like I still think it's in my ranking. I think it's probably third. I think End of Evangelion and the original show were kind of battling it out for that top spot, but I think it's still third. But I really really like this movie, and the more I think about it, the more I like it. Um,
Yeah. So before we get into the story, I kind of want to talk about context and technical things about this movie.
okay, yeah, yeah,
So keep in mind, during this time, Ano did slip back into a little bit of depression between those 9 years,
yeah.
between 3 and 4. He went through a depressive state for a while. Also, this is when COVID happened near the end of
Yes,
it, so
yeah.
it completely halted production on it. And it just, you can see that a lot because the ending for this movie is very reminiscent of the ending of the show, which was made like during Arnold's depression.
Hmm.
And one of the fun things about this movie that I didn't really appreciate until I watched it again, or like watched clips from it again because I don't have that time. I'm sorry. This movie, a lot of animation things are made with storyboards.
Hmm.
This movie was made with pre-visuals, like how a like a live
Hmm.
action movie
Hmm.
would be made, which is why the cinematography in this movie is so good. There's interesting camera shots. It makes it feel real.
Hmm.
It feels so real how it's played out in the camera angles, the close-ups, the wide shots, and everything. It feels like a live action movie, but it's done in animation.
Hmm.
Um, they there's a scene in the beginning where no, it's actually at the end where two of the Evangelion units are dropped from space to fly down and fight a big horde.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
the studio, the animation artists went skydiving
Oh my gosh.
and recorded it all in mocap suits.
Oh wow.
A lot of the Evangelion fights, especially in the end between Shinji and Gendo, those are mocap.
That's
Those are like
insane.
it's done because Ano was a very his favorite thing of all time is Ultraman. I don't know if you
Hmm.
ever heard of that.
I've heard of it.
He's a big fan of like Ultraman, the old Godzilla movies. He actually helped make Shin Godzilla.
Yeah,
Um,
I think he either directed it or was a technical director
which is
on it or
why at
something.
the very end, the last Evangelion fight between the two Unit Ones, it's shot like an old time kind
Hmm.
of kaiju
Hmm.
movie, and like the buildings they're fighting around are like cardboard
Yeah,
boxes
they
and
literally
not
have
like
that scene where
sets.
they're like on a miniature
Yeah,
set. Yeah, yeah,
and that's all just from Ano's like, and it's all just like it's mocap and it's done to emulate real people, which I think is so interesting. Because
yeah.
when
Hmm.
I first watched it, I just thought, man, this CGI sucks. But like after watching it, I realized that no, they have all the money in the world. This was on purpose, and
Yeah.
it's just amazing how much detail goes into this movie. But yeah, I think that's like. I also think that near the end, no, I'm gonna say that for later. I'm gonna say that later. We can start by the beginning of the movie.
Okay, well, this starts with a really, really awesome action sequence. This starts in Paris where they're like trying to like I don't know after I guess the third impact, the near third impact, the entire world has been like nearly annihilated and like Paris is a shell. It's all like red and it starts with them like um trying to like turn back trying to like restore a part of Paris so they can access a nerve base so they can steal some technology and resources. Um and it opens with Mari literally like picking up the Eiffel Tower and using it as like a lance or a baseball bat. And I'm pretty
So
sure
over the top.
it's no, it's so over the top. And I'm pretty sure at one point she even says like she apologizes in French and she's like, "I fell." You know, I fell.
Yeah,
Eiffel. It just it's one of those things where like Mari definitely kind of exists at at arm's length, and she doesn't get like a lot of development. But I really like that character because she's really funny.
I like that she doesn't get a lot of development in the fact that she just feel. I said this through our text, but she feels like a normal human being
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
in this obviously over exaggerated and deep and broken world,
Yeah,
I don't get
like
like a
yeah.
person.
She's not traumatized the way Asuka
Also,
is, the way Rey is.
a fun, really over the top part of this action scene is that she has ships around her that are flying ships.
I
They're
loved
like
it.
battleships, but they're flying. And another thing is that they're held up by strings. If you've noticed that, the way they
I
move, that
did.
was done on purpose because it's supposed to emulate the old kaiju movies, how they would have things be held up by strings.
Hmm.
I think that's just such an interesting way to make it.
Hmm.
And the outer layer of the ships is made of the shield that Ava Unit Zero used to block Ramil's blasts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I knew it looked
Also,
like a shield, but I was like, yeah.
I don't think we mentioned this, but like this new anti-nerve group, their headquarters is a flying warship, and it's made from the body of Ava Unit 2, the one that went berserk and stuff.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, their headquarters is a flying warship. It's called like the Wonder, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Such a cool design, dude.
Such a cool design.
Yeah.
It looks like a whale. I love it. But
The scene in 3 when they take it off for the first time,
mhm.
that was like it's because it's like a flashback to those to the original show with all those insane like over the top things they would do, and it's like there's no way, and then they do it. It's like oh my god, I love this show.
But yeah, I'm trying to think about like what we can tread on before we get to the whole big part of the movie. The village arc is so Shinji doesn't say anything for the first 40 minutes of this movie,
Right.
or he says maybe one or two words
Hmm.
because he is completely destroyed by Kawaru's death. Um, the only thing he does do is like vomit. He just vomits when he thinks about Kawaru, and because Shinji really isn't doing anything, Rei gets the spotlight
Hmm.
for this first part of the movie, Clone Rei,
Hmm.
and I love it. There's some
I
people out here that don't like this part of the movie. I would have to disagree.
I
It's so
completely.
interesting because Clone Ray doesn't really have any emotions and she doesn't understand anything. And she's put in this small village of like refugees that are still alive. And she just kind of has to live with them and they teach her how to be human. And one of my favorite scenes is when she sees a cat and she just doesn't get what it is.
She
She's
doesn't
like,
even know what the
what is
cat
this?
is. She's like,
She doesn't
that's
know
a
what
weird
cat.
looking
She doesn't know what
dog.
she wants. Yeah. And it's just that she learns how to like she becomes like a little farmer and picks crops and bonds with all these like old ladies, and it's a long it like it's like a slow burn kind of
Hmm.
part of the
Hmm.
movie. And but it's just very nice seeing Ray get all this character development, and it's such a good send off for her character as well
Hmm.
because of what happens next.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
I think because I mentioned that I think this movie is kind of the same ending as the original show, um, but I think really this first hour is that because the original ending of the show is all of these characters trying to lift Shinji up, but you never really get to see what Shinji does with being lifted up. What Shinji does after he learns to love himself or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think in this first hour, specifically through Rei, Shinji actually learns to love himself, and the next hour is him learning to help other people. Um,
Hmm.
that at least that was my read. That was my read of this movie.
No, I completely agree with you. Without going too much into the ending for later, I feel like the ending for the show is everyone lifting Shinji up and helping him, but the end of the movie is Shinji helping out all the other cast members.
Right, right, yeah, exactly. Um, and yeah,
The
like
whole race sequence is so sweet, but then we learn that she can't survive away from Nerd for too long. And one last thing I want to touch on is she gets infatuated with this baby.
mhm.
Uh, it's Ida's baby, right?
It's Toji's.
Or
It's
was it
to.
Toji's?
I, I
Toji's
lo-
baby.
I love that he ended up with the class rep. because like
Yes.
they have that little subplot in the show, but they never mentioned it in the movies. I just love that they
But
ended
they
up
actually
together.
get together and have like a child and stuff. And Ray is just like fascinated with this baby because it's like it's life, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Why
she
did you
doesn't
shrink?
really have
Why
it.
why did you shrink this human? I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, and then Shinji sits at this pier for a very long time with his Walkman, right? He has the Walkman, right?
No, he doesn't have it because Ray keeps
No, he's
bringing it
supposed
back
to have
to
it.
him
Yeah.
with
Right, right. Ray
like
keeps
the
bringing it back to
books.
him.
That because
Hmm.
like it's one of those things that makes three better. He spends the entirety of three bringing her the books, and she never touches them until this movie. And in this movie, she keeps bringing him the Walkman, and he keeps throwing it away.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
And Ray, one thing I like that I didn't really realize on my first watch of it is that before Ray dies, she asks, I can't remember
the
who she is. I
name.
think it's class representative. No, she asks, what does goodbye mean? And she's told that it means I'll see you again or something like that. And so before she dies in front of Shinji, she tells him goodbye. And I like that, she thinks that she'll see him again.
I love the
And
note
then,
that she left, the goodbye note that she left for class rep. That's literally just all of the phrases that the class rep taught her. It's
mhm,
the thank you, good morning, good night, goodbye. And
yeah,
I know I mentioned crying a lot on this show, but I cried very early in this movie. I lost it when cuz like her plug suits transforms back into the original
the white.
suit, the white. Oh, I lost it. It's
And
so
then she just kind of dissolves into a puddle and dies. And then Shinji finally says something.
yeah. No, cuz like the right but I don't remember if it's right before that or right. No, it's actually a little bit before that when he finally says something cuz he's like um cuz he I remember he asks her why are you so nice to me? And Ray goes because I like you. And that's such a weird moment for Ray because she barely you just know she barely understands what she just said. She's just
Yeah,
now learning what that means. Oh gosh, it's so sweet.
yeah. And
I did
then so that's basically the first half of the movie.
because it's
And
an Ava movie, she of course her head explodes.
yeah, she explodes. A lot of people's heads explode in the
Uh,
series. um, so I guess this kind of segues us into the second half of the movie, which is completely different. Oh my god, the first
oh
half
my
of this
god,
movie and the second half
dude.
are completely different things, which kind of very reminiscent of End of Evangelion.
Yeah, yeah.
So this movie introduces a lot of terms that will never make sense. So Gendo and his nerve Ava things, they travel into a plane called the anti-universe. We are not going to explain it because we
They
can't.
because they don't explain it. Like literally,
They don't
Risco's
explain it.
Risco's sitting on a phone and she's like scrolling through and it's like, and now they're in the anti-universe. It's like, what?
Basically, my loose understanding of it is that like it's the realm where you can create what you want, and that's
Hmm.
why that whole final fight happens the way it is.
Hmm.
But before that, the Wonder and the whole anti nerve group, kind of they go off to go fight them and stuff, and they have this badass scene where they drop Asuka and Mari from space, and they like skydive holding like giant Gatling guns, like shooting all these like Gendo has this army of these like Evangelion monsters,
Hmm.
and they're just mowing them down like it's
Say,
nothing.
say
And
what you want about all the CGI in these movies. The part where all of the Evangelion monsters form like a drill is
yeah,
so cool. This entire fight is so cool. Also like I there's the scene where Asuka, this is going back, but the scene where because I have to talk about Asuka. The scene where Asuka like force feeds Shinji just
mm-hmm.
again shows that like yes, Asuka has a really blunt way of being and a really she's hurt and her walls are still up, but she's still trying to help. She's still,
Yeah,
at her core really just wants to help. Um, and then once she's back on the ship, she has like a few scenes with Mari that I'm still not entirely certain those two aren't dating, but
Most definitely are not.
I'm still not entirely certain. But um, she has a few scenes with Mari, and then she goes to Shinji, to like say goodbye because he's like gonna sit in a jail cell for the rest of the movie. He's supposed to. Um,
Supposed to.
what?
Supposed to.
Supposed to. Yeah. But uh, yeah, he sits in this jail cell, right? But she goes to him and she basically like apologizes for she's like she apologizes for the way she treated him 14 years ago. And she's like, "Yeah, I guess I had a little bit of a crush on you." And I just like those two were kind of my end game. Shinji and Oscar were kind of my end game with the original show. Um, but it's just this really sweet moment of like growing apart, like living a life. I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. And
Because
then
they
you get the fight.
acknowledge that they would not have been good for each other in the long
Right,
run,
right,
which I
right.
agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, this whole final fight, I forget what it is they get to, but they get to some like spear kind of thing, and Oscar kind of just like
Dies again.
dies again
Ugh.
in a really confusing scene where an angel comes out of her eye and blows everything up
Yeah,
with her
yeah,
eye.
okay. I'm glad
That's
I'm not
very
the only
confusing.
one. I'm glad I'm not the
It's a
only one
little
who doesn't
confusing,
actually
but
know
I
what
get it.
happened. Cause
I
even
get
when
it
I
too, but it's still weird.
even when
Like
you asked
she had an
when we were
angel in
talking,
her eye.
yeah, when we were talking, you asked like where I was, and I was like, I think Asuka just died again. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
and
good
then
scene. It's a good
yeah,
scene.
and then Shinji pilots the Ava again, and
Before
we
he
have
pilots the Ava, though, like the crew of the Vunder, all like confront him and are about to like kill him. I love this scene. Um, and Misato kind of gets this like the walls come down on Misato for a second, and she kind of gets this opportunity. I think her hat comes off and like her hair's not down, but like you see her hair again. Um, and she kind of forgives Shinji for the first time, and then everyone else, I guess, forgives Shinji, and then he
well,
gets
except for
back
the
in the.
one girl who goes to shoot Shinji, but Misato takes the bullet for him.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Yeah,
that, but yeah,
while she's sitting there, Shinji talks to Misato about how like he met her
he
son and he seems very nice, which I think is
such a
such a
good
sweet
scene,
scene.
such a good
And
scene.
before that, before I think it's right before Gendo goes into the anti-universe with Ritsuko pointing the gun at him and everything,
Hmm.
because this is probably the only time we'll talk about Ritsuko. Um, there's a scene in End of Evangelion where has the option to shoot him. She's able to shoot him, but she just can't bring herself to do it, and
Hmm.
she gets killed because of it. But in this movie, she shoots him. Granted, it doesn't kill him, and it
Doesn't
knocks
do
out
anything.
his laser eye thing, and it shows that Gendo is not human anymore. He has ascended. Um, but yeah, I like that little bit of a parallel between it.
Uh huh.
All right, we're not going to talk about Ritsuko anymore.
Yeah,
There's just
I
not a lot
really
to
like
say because
Ritsuko.
there's just not a lot to say.
Yeah, there's just not a lot to say. I really like Ritsuko though.
Yeah.
But I like her dynamic with other characters.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there was one other thing I
Yeah,
was
so
gonna say.
Shinji goes into the anti-universe, and they also send Mari in there,
Hmm.
but that's not really important until later.
Yeah,
But the way they send Mari in there is that they use the ship to push Mari into the negative universe, anti-universe, and Misato is the only one on the ship, and she's piloting it, so she sacrifices herself to push Mari in there, which is a really cool scene. Of
yeah,
course, Misato dies again.
of course. But it's such a great way because like that character's role in the last two movies has been not the same as it was in the original story.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just such a and like it's just such a cool way for her to go out. And that is the scene where like she brings her hair down and she really like becomes Misato again. Um, and then she, she flies into giant Uncanny Valley CGI Ray's eyeball, which is, I love the way Ray looked because it was so unsettling.
It
Because
was
it,
so unsettling. It was so weird. Some
yeah,
people called it bad CGI, but like it's like that on purpose. You know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
got that like you said, uncanny valley feel,
Hmm.
where it just kind of makes you scared.
Yeah,
Which I
it's
think I think that is like the start where the real life and 2D animation things start settling in, because the second, the I guess the final act of this movie does delve into like CGI real world kind of things as
right,
well,
right.
which I guess we'll go into now. The anti-universe fight. It's just Shinji and Gendo, and they are. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but they're fighting, and it looks like an old school kaiju movie with like people in suits, and they're fighting. And at first, it looks super realistic, but then you notice like the buildings are not breaking, and they're traveling from like set piece to set piece. Like at one point, it's two Evangelion units in a kitchen,
In a
in
kitchen,
Misato's kitchen.
in Misato's kitchen, and in the classroom.
Yeah, and then they're fighting in the city, and they're knocking over the buildings like they're boxes, and you can see that they're actually cardboard boxes, and
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
lights everywhere, and it's starting to like dissolve into it being like a real life studio. And Shinji realizes he can't win. He cannot beat Gendo because Gendo is just too powerful. So instead, he asks like, "Father, I would like to talk to you." And so then you get the most amount of Gendo lore there ever has been. Um, you basically almost like Gendo's life flashes before his
Hmm.
eyes,
Hmm.
and you learn about Gendo as like being like when he was younger and stuff. And there's a lot of parallels between him and Shinji, but
Hmm.
Shinji is kind of like the good ending, and Gendo is like the bad ending. Gendo
Hmm.
lets his kind of like loneliness and anger corrupt him, while Shinji eventually is gonna power through it.
Hmm.
Which gonna delve off for a second. Um, I like to think of Gendo as like what Ano was afraid of becoming while he was depressed.
Hmm.
And fun fact: Ano's father lost his leg when he was younger, as he was a railroad worker.
Wow.
And
Uh-huh.
Ano's father was a very bitter man who hated the world for like what happened to him, because he didn't deserve. He felt like he didn't deserve it, So like, wow, obviously, I'm sure Ano doesnn't think his father is like the destroyer of the universe. There's definitely a
Right,
real
right.
life inspiration
Hmm.
for Gendo's character. Um, but yeah, they fight in this anti-universe, and then they start talking, and you learn a lot about Gendo's backstory and how like the death of his wife, he just couldn't deal with it, so
Hmm.
he just became distant to everyone, including his son. He thought, pushing away his son would make things better,
Hmm.
but obviously it didn't.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
things start getting a little trippy after that.
Yeah, because then like Gendo gets that full moment, and like this is one of those things where like the role the rebuilds play in like the broader story of Evangelion, because this is like the only fight we get that's actually between Shinji and Gendo. This is the only time we actually see those two characters actually confront each other. Um, it really is that, because my next question was, I wonder who Gendo is to Ano. Now that you've answered that, I love that this was like his final confrontation with the thing he was afraid of. And I love the Gendo lore. I love the fact that like he abandoned Shinji because he blamed himself for his wife's death, and he was afraid that he would lose Shinji too, and it would be his fault. Which
Yeah.
is, exactly what ended up happening. And I'm sure he hated himself for that, and it became like a loop of self-hatred. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so I love all of the Gendo lore. But then, Gendo gets that moment and like gets absolution in a weird way. And then Kaworu shows up.
Yeah, which
Um,
I want to say, the whole Shinji being on the train and each character getting on and then leaving. is so nice, and it
Mhm.
ties into what I was saying earlier about how in the show it was like different characters coming in and helping out Shinji learn to love himself,
Mhm.
and in this one, it's like different characters coming on the train, Shinji helping them out, like talking to them, and then when
Mhm.
they leave, it's like he's grown up, he's
Yeah.
stronger now, he knows who he is, and like Gendo leaving the train, any character that leaves the train, it's just a
Mhm.
very like powerful kind of scene.
Mhm.
And one thing also I want to say real quick is that what is it? Ano has expressed that he probably will not make anything animation anymore. He thinks he's done with animation
Uh-huh.
because he wants to move over into live action movies. So this also feels like Ano saying goodbye to animation and goodbye to these characters he's made, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
Because in it's called Goodbye All of Evangelion. It's the end to the entire series.
Right.
Yeah.
Um
But yeah, Kaworu shows up
and
after that.
it's such a good goodbye. Like it's such it like this movie has such a monumental task of like saying goodbye to the entire thing, and it does it so well. Um, but yeah, then Cowder shows up, and you get like probably the most like lore heavy for the entire franchise moment of like Kaoru explaining the fact that he's lived this loop thousands of times, and in each of them he feels like he lived to love Shinji. Um, it's yeah.
Yeah. He lives to learn love Shinji, but it's like this time he kind of learns a little bit more to like love himself, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Which is kind of like another version of Shinji's situation, you know? But and then Kaworu leaves. He departs from the train, and then it's Asuka next, right?
I believe so.
Because I know
Um,
Rei is last. Rei's last.
Ray's last. Yeah, then it's Asuka.
Yeah, because I don't think Misato shows up, right?
I don't think so.
No, because she got enough character development.
Yeah.
Um,
um, and I'll be
oh,
honest, I don't.
I don't, I don't think, I don't think Asuka shows up. It's Rei next, and then during the next sequence, we get to see Asuka on the beach. Yeah,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
yeah. Rei shows up next, and it kind of dissolves even more to where they are just they are just standing in a barren studio, like a real film studio, which is
Mhm.
actually based off one of the ones they have. Um, they're just talking for a little bit about like Shinji kind of has this power now
Mhm.
to do whatever he wants since he's in the anti universe,
Uh-huh.
and all he wants is just for everyone to be happy, and he wants to like get rid of all Evangelions. And
Um, and he
and
has
while
the
that
chance.
conversation's happening, there's like a projection behind him, which is the original show,
The original show,
and
and
it's
he has the chance to start a new life. And I believe it's Ray who says Neon Genesis, or
yeah,
somebody,
it's Ray says
one of
Neon
them,
Genesis,
one of them calls it Neon Genesis.
New Earth.
New Earth. It's such a good moment, and also like one of those things that I don't quite understand yet. In this scene, Ray has long hair and is holding like a makeshift doll. Um,
It's the doll of the baby from the beginning of the movie.
oh, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I could not tell you why she has long hair.
Yeah, no, I don't. Because it doesn't really look like Yui's, but I don't know.
No, it doesn't. I looked at Yui. I was so wrong. It does not look like Yui at all.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So they're in this like almost real life area, but Shinji decides like I want to get rid of Evangelion to make everyone have a happier life, and then we cut back to what's actually happening, and Shinji's in this Evangelion unit, and he brings the spear that he had, and he goes to pierce himself with it because he's gonna kill himself so
Hmm.
everyone
Hmm.
else can live a happy life, which is like full character arc. Full character arc. Shinji's character is finally complete, and right before he kills himself, his mom grabs
His
him.
mom. Yeah.
Which we I feel like we sound insane talking about this because this has been like what over 2 hours.
Yeah,
This is easily
yeah,
over almost 3 hours.
yeah, we're at like
We
two and a half
sound so
hours.
we sound so insane, but Shinji's mom grabs it because Shinji's mom's soul was in the Evangelion unit this whole time. And you see this really sweet scene of Gendo and Yui holding each other, and they sacrifice themselves so Shinji can be a part of this new world. And then it's either after this or before this, but we get a scene where he's on a beach, and it's the scene from the end of Evangelion, where he's sitting on the
Yeah,
beach with Asuka.
with Asuka.
And Asuka's, I didn't realize this at first, Asuka is grown. Asuka is older because they stunted their growth by like 14 years.
Uh-huh,
Asuka is like an
uh-huh.
adult now, and they talk, and it's just such a nice conversation. And it's when they're like, "Oh, yeah, they liked each other and everything, but it wouldn't have worked." And it's kind of like Shinji saying goodbye to Asuka. It's
Hmm.
him like letting her be free,
Right,
and
yeah.
be herself.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, it cuts to just Shinji on the ocean because, to jump back just a little bit, Mari told Shinji that she'll come and find him because she went into the anti-universe.
Hmm.
She said that she'll come find him. And now we cut to Shinji sitting on a normal beach by himself, and the animation just kind of gets worse and worse and worse, and it's more like frame by frame drawn.
Yeah.
It's more hand sketched. And at the end, it's completely hand drawn, and it kind of makes you think like, oh, Shinji's gonna fade away.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that's what I kind of thought, like, oh, Shinji's like letting himself like disappear. And then Mari shows up as a sketch, and she's like, "Hey, I'm here," and she pops out of her Ava unit, and then the second she touches the water, it goes back to like normal animation,
Uh-huh.
and
Uh-huh.
her Ava unit floats in the air and just poofs away, and we sound insane. and and she goes and she like walks up to him and she starts talking to him, and then
Hmm.
there's just this really sudden cut, and all of a sudden it's just animated so differently to where it looks almost real.
It looks
And
like, yeah.
they're at this train station, and Shinji is older. Shinji's instantly a lot older. He looks like a man, and
Hmm.
Mari looks like an adult. And
And
they're like
all of them
talking,
are
and
there. All of them are on
everyone's
that
there. All the other
platform.
pilots, you can see them on the other side of the platform. No one really like. They're not all acquainted and everything. They're just there.
I think Cordio and Ray
Cordy
are
and Ray are
talking,
talking. Asuka's
but
by
yeah.
herself. But yeah, and you get a glimpse into this new world. And I can't remember what Mari says to Shinji, but she says something about like let's just go be happy or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something along those lines. And then Shinji grabs Mari's hand, and they run up these stairs, and then it's a wide pan out, and it's a,
Hmm.
a real place in the world. But you see the 2D animation figures in there, and you
Hmm.
can see Mari and Shinji running off into the distance, and it's a wide pan, and it fades from 2D animation into like live action.
Yeah.
And the place it's at is Ano's hometown.
Wow. Yeah.
That's his hometown. And a big theory is that Mari is supposed to represent Ano's wife, who like saved him.
Which makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Which almost makes you think like that last fight is kind of the um this entire movie feels almost like the process of making this movie. Cause like he
Mm-hmm.
disappeared for 9 years. Shinji spends the first hour of this movie in a village. He didn't make a movie for 9 years. Shinji spends the first hour extremely depressed in a village, and then he rejoins the fight. Um, and then he goes off. He gets the opportunity to do whatever he wants, which is end the franchise. And his wife is there to meet him. Mari is there to meet
Yeah.
him. Um,
And
yeah,
Shinji at the final sequence is just Ano.
yeah.
It's just Ano. And it's such a sweet ending. It's
Hmm.
so just it's happy. It's a happy ending. Because that's what Shinji deserved. He deserved a happy ending.
It only
And
took three
it
tries.
delivers. It only took three tries. But Shinji finally got a happy, good ending. I personally really like this ending.
Hmm.
I think it's really good for what it is, and I think it's really hard. It's hard to end a show, let alone a franchise.
Hmm.
So being able to end it like that, wrapping up everything, is it's crazy.
It's
It's really
insane.
awesome.
It's yeah, like because it's hard to even like this is literally the end of like this franchise, these four movies, and it's the end of the whole
The
franchise,
show,
and it's the end of a phase in someone's life as
exactly.
he's like stepping into that's such a difficult thing to try and do. There's
To
so many
portray, yeah,
layers to that, but it's done so well. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's a great
Good
like
movies.
yeah, really good movies.
Yeah,
Um,
I
and
guess. No, you go.
And then like I watched a timeline video yesterday, which was made before 1.0 plus 3.0 came out, but it literally like took every piece of Ava content ever, like all the tie-in games, the manga, the RPGs, the crossovers, and like put them in like one timeline. The running theme is, and this is so interesting to me because he's literally in one episode of the show. It's all about Koryu. It's all about it's all about Kwaru. Waru? Yeah, whatever.
Kawaru.
It's Kaworu. It's all about him. It's all about this one guy, which makes me wonder like who he represents in Ano's life, because he's so constant. Like the entire thing, the show, even like End of Evangelion, he pops up very briefly. And then in the movies, it's all just Kaworu trying to not just like trying to get with Shinji, although kind of trying to get with Shinji, but like
All around humanity.
trying to convince Shinji to like come back and be happy
Hmm.
and love himself and love the world. And it's you know, oh, so there's in Kaoru scenes there's moments where he's like you see him talking to Koji, and like he's in Gendo's outfit, and he's sitting at Gendo's desk. um it's almost like Gendo is what Ano was afraid of, but Kaworu is who Ano kind of hoped he could be, almost.
Yeah.
Um, that's cool. That's I hadn't thought about that yet. That's cool.
Yeah. Rather than just segue from two separate segments, I'm cool to just like give final thoughts and rank it all. You
I'm
feel
down
me
with
now?
that. Yeah.
Okay. So I think I think ranking just the four movies by themselves, I think I would definitely put the third one at last, just because it's really good, but it's such a big shift in tone that I
Hmm.
can get why some people don't like it, and it's really hard to like if you don't watch the fourth one.
Hmm.
And then as third, I would put the first one, because while it's pretty bare bones, it's just I mean it's nostalgia bait for me. I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like seeing
Yeah.
everything redone.
Yeah.
Um, for a second one, I would put the second movie. I like the second movie a lot. It's so much fun. I like the way you can see how the story kind of starts to change. I
Hmm.
like the
Hmm.
introduction of Mari. I love the whole final fight and everything, and the whole near third impact. But
Hmm.
man, I love the fourth movie so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's number one for me. It's number one. It's such a sweet ending, and it just makes me happy knowing all the characters ended up okay. Especially with like the only other endings being a kind of mediocre one, and everyone dies.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, no, yeah, I have the exact same ranking. With three, I think three is good, but especially given the fourth one. But um, there's just not enough context to the massive change in pace, tone, world, character. Um, but I really do love the dynamic with Kaoru, and uh, there's some Asuka stuff in there that I really like. I love Suzuhara. I love the fact that that character, who's never even seen in the original show, and then is like barely a character in the first two movies, kind of gets to be this really fun. This franchise, I didn't really talk about it, but this franchise has always done like really really interesting, strong-willed female characters, and just getting Suzuhara to come in and get to like be that character was really, I've really appreciated that.
Yeah,
And then a lot of like fights, a lot of the action in three is still really good. Um, yeah, and then my number three is the first movie, really mainly just because of that final fight. Just because the final fight with Ramil, I think that's his name, is
yeah,
such
yeah,
a is such a cool fight. Like the redesign of Ramil, and like the it's like beat for beat, but the conversations that Rei has with Shinji are all, I love all of those. Um and then just yeah. And then number two is probably my second favorite movie is probably the second one. And I really like a lot of that. It has Asuka in it, who's like my favorite character. Um, I really like I like the ending. I like the third impact, the near third impact. I like that that happens. I love the fact that um Shinji kind of gets that opportunity to take agency and like get confidence, does it in the second movie, and then it completely blows up in his face. Um, I love that even Masato is like, do it for yourself, do it for you, Shinji, don't do it for anyone else, and it completely blows up in their face. That's just very like that's just good like drama. Um, I really do like the scenes with Mari. I still think she feels like a little bit pointless, but then I do like the scenes with Mari. Yeah, and then number one is the fourth one. And I cannot decide if I like the fourth one more for the ending, or if I like the fourth one for the first hour for the village stuff. I honestly can't
yeah.
decide which of those two plots I like more, because yeah, the entire show is just that entire movie is just such a great like send off to the whole thing. We've gotten the original ending that's a great send off to Shinji. We've gotten End of Evangelion that's a great send off to the lore or whatever.
Yeah.
Um and a great like, you know, just a really interesting statement from Ano towards the fans. Um, and then you get this that does all of that. Gives a great send off to Shinji. Gives development to pretty much everyone except like maybe Fuyutsuki and Ritsuko. Although I
They're
still
fine.
really like. I still what?
I said they're fine.
Yeah, yeah. I still really like Fuyutsuki and Ritsuko.
I think they're great characters, but like some characters don't need an arc.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, it's such a great like end to this whole like, I can't imagine what it was like being there. Like
being there.
watching
There
this
was a
what
documentary.
yeah, I should watch it. I can't imagine what it was like as a fan watching this in 1996 and then watching this movie in like 2021. I can't imagine what that was like. I can
It's
imagine.
insane. You're not at all. Yeah, definitely a great send off for the franchise. Oh, okay.
Great series. Great like
Yeah.
um I don't know. it feels weird because like I didn't know what this show was a month ago, and now like
Yeah,
it's had such a large impact, which
it's
like seems to be a pretty consistent occurrence. Every YouTube video I've seen on it has said something along the lines of Ava changed my life, or Ava, saved me.
definitely
And
makes you look at the world a different way.
yeah, and I think it's done something similar for me. I'm not gonna overshare, but my state right now is not, the greatest thing in the world. And getting to watch this show about like accepting the world as it is and then moving forward is pretty powerful. And just that story of a creator, someone who made something as an expression of their own pain, and watching them like literally process it over the course of 25 years. Um,
It's amazing.
really, really, really cool. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
honestly,
I don't think there's a whole lot else to say.
I don't think there is
Um,
either. I think
there's not a
that's
lot
a
of shows out there that have three endings or that have the balls to retcon their own ending. I
right.
wish more things would do that.
Same, same.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah. Anyway, that is that's all I got to say.
That's all I got to
Thanks
say.
to anyone who actually listened to this. Thank you for coming out and doing this with me for 3 hours
I appreciate it.
talking about this show.
Got nothing else to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of my brain is completely fucking fried. So I don't know what else to say. Other than yeah, hope.
Yeah, I mean,
D-
thank y'all for
Thank y'all
listening.
for listening. Go do all the great podcast things. Leave a follow. I think this is gonna be on YouTube. Go ahead and comment something on the YouTube video or something. I don't know. Yeah. Thanks so much for listening. We will see y'all in the whenever. I don't know. I
Yeah,
want to do more of these deep dives, but I don't know what I'm gonna talk about for 3 hours other than Ava. But yeah. Anyway, we'll see y'all later.
see ya.